Chapter 421. Below the round sunglasses was a pair of eyes full of caution and obedience. Every time a light flashed from the pupils behind the sunglasses, a trace of gaze would always inadvertently look at the silver-haired man sitting in front of him. Reynold. This man, who had already controlled half of the amalgam, had become Krama's immediate superior. Therefore, Krama had to leave the city he had been running for a long time and follow the order to this area specially designated by Reynold, waiting for Rayminkai's summons. Krama. While Krama was thinking about all kinds of situations that might happen, the silver-haired man sitting by the window turned his head slightly and looked at Krama's round sunglasses. Yes, Sir Reynold. Please instruct me. Without hesitation, Krama had already responded the moment Reynold's voice fell. Krama's reaction satisfied Reynold. Mr. O's death gave Reynold the opportunity to take over half of the amalgam forces, but at the same time, Mr. O's substitute, who was promoted by Rayminkai, also made a grand appearance. While Mr. O's substitute effortlessly took back Mr. O's original forces, it also caused Reynold to encounter some obstacles when he tried to take over the other forces. Krama's respectful attitude at the moment really satisfied Reynold, who had spent a lot of effort on the incorporation work. Krama. You don't have to go back. Just stay here. To Krama's surprise, Reynold actually said that he didn't have to go back to his own territory. Is this a seizure of power? No. Krama was not stupid. On the contrary, his mind was very flexible. After Reynold said that sentence, the relevant information stored in Krama's mind constantly emerged from the depths of his memory. Based on Reynold's words, Krama guessed it in just a few seconds. Sir Reynold, you mean to say that the city has already fallen? Krama did not dare to be arbitrary and could only carefully get the answer from Reynold. Yes. The knight's actions were very fast. On the day you left, the knight had already sent people into your city. Although Reynold's words were very light and dull, the cold sweat on Krama's forehead couldn't help but fall down. Lord Reynold. Leonard waved his right hand and chuckled. Kramer need not worry about this. The loss of that city was within our expectations. With that, Reynold stood up from the chair, walked to Krama's side, and patted him on the shoulder. Krama, do you know why I called you back at this time? That's because what we're about to do next is crucial. Mithril, and even that night, thought that after removing our stronghold in the western Pacific Ocean, Mithril headquarters would be safe. Although this is the normal strategic thinking, Mithril and the Knight didn't think that we don't need any strongholds in the western Pacific Ocean. The more Krama listened, the more shocked he became. He couldn't help but gulp. Was this a face-to-face instruction? Leonard's laughter rang in Krama's ears. Clearly, Kramer's perception was correct. Krama. There's no need to be nervous. Now we are about to launch an all-out attack on Mithril. It's time for this tug-of-war to end. Hearing Reynold's words, Krama, who couldn't think about how to deal with the loss of the stronghold in the western Pacific Ocean, just nodded slowly. Yes, Lord Reynold. After encouraging Krama, who had lost his territory and became alone again, Reynold allowed him to leave on his own and prepare for the follow-up mission according to his orders. However, when watching Krama disappear behind the gradually closing door, Reynold did not return to his seat. Instead, he turned to the wine rack and said while selecting red wine, "Your Excellency, Mr. J. Since you're here, why don't you come out and meet me?" Mr. Reynolds' intuition is still as sharp as ever. A shadow flashed, and the clown face that Reynold had long been accustomed to appeared in front of the window, Mr. J, who had always been elusive. "Mr. J, you're really something. I'm just a little used to your style of action." Reynold raised the wine glass in his hand, as if asking the man standing in front of the window if he wanted a drink. However, the clown was unmoved. He just shook his head faintly and bowed slightly to Reynold. "Mr. Reynold, today, I'm here to say goodbye to you." "Goodbye? Mr. J. Where are you going?" Leonard's wine-glass paused. He looked at the clown's face, whose real expression could not be seen behind the white foundation. Yes, dear Mr. Reynolds, my mission here is over. Mission? Reynolds put down the wine-glass and frowned slightly. Is it the 7 sins that you mentioned before? Pride, envy, wrath, sloth, greed, gluttony, and cruelty? As you expected. I've found the cruelty I'm looking for here, so it's time for me to leave here and embark on the journey to continue to find the other 6 sins. Mr. J. If it weren't for the clown makeup on his face, he might have been a well-mannered and elegant young man. Cruelty? Reynolds pondered for a moment, then laughed out loud. Is it 9 dragons? I didn't expect you to be able to grasp the evaluation of 9 dragons so accurately. Cruelty, It seems that 9 dragons didn't live in vain. After a pause, Reynolds asked rhetorically, Then, what about me? Mr. J., which sin do you think I am? Reynolds' question made Mr. J. silent for a moment. Pride. After a moment of silence, Mr. J.'s answer once again made Reynolds laugh loudly. Ha 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 ha! You have a good eye. Your Excellency Mr. J. That's right. This evaluation is indeed very suitable for me. Reynolds was not ashamed or angry in the face of this not a good evaluation. Instead, he accepted it very readily. He remembered that when he met Ray Minkai before, Reynolds had made the same evaluation of Ray Minkai, Mr. J., and Miss Q. So, does Mr. J. also want to take me away? In the name of pride. Reynolds looked sharply at the clown standing in front of the window. Under the sharp gaze, Mr. J.'s body did not move at all, and the white foundation on his face did not show any signs of peeling off. That will depend on your wishes, Your Excellency. This was Mr. J.'s answer. Is that so? Then, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. The corners of Reynolds' mouth curled up slightly. He turned around, took out the wine glass again, poured red wine into it, and handed it to Mr. J. Sir. This is a farewell dinner prepared in your honor. How about it? Mr. J. raised his eyes slightly, glanced at the wine glass in Reynolds' hand, and shook his head again. Thank you very much for your kindness. But I can't enjoy such a wonderful thing. As his voice fell, Mr. J.'s figure flickered and disappeared behind the curtain that was rolled up by the breeze. I am Pride? Interesting. 1:00 a.m. late at night. The sons of Dan's slave, who were diving in the deep sea, were still in a busy state. Among them, Captain Teresa was also the most busy. As the captain of the sons of Dan's slave, Teresa not only had to deal with various affairs of the sons of Dan's slave, but also had to deal with various intelligence and tactics from the front line. Especially at this critical moment when the battle for the amalgam force was about to end, Teresa did not have time to rest at all. She was busy day and night. Captain, you should rest for a while. Let me take care of things here. Looking at the busy Teresa, Richard, who felt more and more distressed, could not help but suggest, No, Richard. I can still hold on for a while. Obviously, Teresa was unwilling to leave her post. Captain, it has been almost 48 hours since you started work. If you continue like this, I'm afraid you will be in danger of falling into a coma due to overdraft. At that time, who will command the sons of Dan's slave? Richard was extremely opposed to Teresa's insistence and refuted Teresa mercilessly. Reason, the situation was just as Richard said. When Teresa subconsciously refuted Richard, her small head shook and she almost fainted. Fortunately, Richard, who was mentally prepared, quickly supported Teresa. Captain, you don't have to continue to persist. Now, our mithril security circle in the Western Pacific has been completed. You can go rest now. Teresa knew that the current progress did not need to be checked by herself, but for some reason, Teresa could not help but pay attention to the things here. In the end, after many attempts, Teresa, who could not muster up the strength again, had no choice but to return to her captain's room to rest. Coincidentally, when Teresa just returned to the captain's room, a communication was connected to the encrypted channel of the Sons of Dan's slave. Huh? Isn't Captain Teresa on duty today? The young man who appeared on the screen briefly glanced at the personnel in the bridge and asked casually. The captain went to rest. It's been a long time, Knight. Richard raised his hand and saluted, then greeted him methodically. Is that so? That's okay. You can also stay here. Lieutenant Colonel. Now Nanche City is under the control of Mithril. Our mission ends here. Now officially report to Mithril. This young man was Ray Minkai. While Nanche City was under the control of Ray Minkai, Gemini, who was assigned by Ray Minkai to deal with the Fat Man and his henchmen, also found some information in a basement. Although this information did not specify who the target was, judging from the data of the many material flows and the frequent personnel movements recorded in the report, Amalgam, no, it should be said that Reynold may have completed the reorganization of the forces in his hands. If that was the case, Reynold would inevitably launch an attack and seize the device underground of the Mithril headquarters. Now that the stronghold on land has been removed by us, will Reynold still launch a surprise attack? The information obtained by Ray Minkai made Richard fall into deep thought. Now, with the fall of Nanche City, Amalgam could no longer threaten Mithril's forces in the Western Pacific. Even before this, relying on the vast Pacific Ocean to hide some forces, he was afraid that he could not compete with the Sons of Dan's slave. Under such circumstances, Richard really couldn't imagine how Amalgamate could send enough troops to the sea near Mithril's headquarters without Mithril knowing about it. In this regard, Ray Minkai did not make any suggestions, nor did he pay too much attention to Richard's thoughts. All he did was to pass the information to the Sons of Dan's slave, and let the Sons of Dan's slave deal with it and analyze it on their own. After the communication was disconnected, Ray Minkai's eyes moved away from the screen and met with Euphemia's eyes. Kai, did you think of something? Euphemia keenly caught the trace of doubt between Ray Minkai's eyebrows. Ray Minkai did not hide it. UFFI. Do you still remember the tactic we used when we were in EU? EU. Layla's Apollo carriage? Euphemia still remembered the battle that used reentry technology. But this world doesn't have that kind of technology, right? Ray Minkai was silent. At the same time, he quickly searched for information about the all-metal world in his mind. Indeed, in Ray Minkai's memory, except for the the Lambda drive system, and the technological revolution caused by the Whisperers, the other aspects of this world were similar to the real world. Therefore, the technology tree for the development of outer space was probably not too different. In other words, it would be difficult to recreate the magnificent feat of Layla's Apollo's carriage in this world. But under this consideration, if another unstable factor was introduced, Ray Minkai felt that Reynold was very likely to launch an attack similar to the Apollo carriage. Because this was currently the most effective and unexpected way to catch Mithril off guard. Miss Q, or maybe Mr. J, these two people with bad intentions, would probably give some technology to Reynold and affect the progress of this world on the premise of achieving their goals. It seems that we still have to focus on air defense. The more he thought about the loopholes in this aspect, the more Ray Minkai felt that Reynolds' main attack direction was probably the blue sky above his head. But, in this case, won't they fall into a battlefield where they are besieged on all sides? Euphemia was a little puzzled. Ray Minkai shook his head slightly. UFFI. Reynold had never thought of taking things slow and steady. His goal from the beginning was the device placed under Merida Island. As long as he can successfully seize the device before the troops are exhausted, then Reynold will inevitably win. Seize the device? But the person who can activate the device is... The next second, Euphemia suddenly came to a realization. Chidori wants it. Reynold wants it for Chidori. Chapter 422. Snowflakes suddenly appeared on the desolate ice field. In the bone-chilling wind, several heavy and huge round iron gates slowly lifted the snow covering this desolate ice field from below, revealing the secret buried under this desolate ice field, the missile silo. Launch sequence entering 1 minute, ready for launch. All personnel evacuate the silo immediately. Evacuate the silo immediately. Red warning lights flickered back and forth in the dim passageway. Soldiers with nervous expressions rushed towards the safety zone along the gradually closing gate. In another minute, the area they were in now would become a restricted area until all the rockets arranged in the silo were launched. Launch countdown of 50 seconds. The countdown resounded through the passageway and reverberated in everyone's ears. This was the most important battle. This was also the battle that Reynold had been planning for a long time. For this battle, Reynold did not hesitate to sacrifice the amalgam's stronghold around the Pacific Ocean and gave up the battle with Qian Shanwu for the amalgam. He gathered the forces that he could control and completed the reorganization in a short period of time. He also selected the strongest soldiers and put them all into this battle that Reynold regarded as the final battle. A long time, a long time, a long time. In Silo Number 1, 3 AS Super Heavy rockets, including Reynolds' Fallen Angel, were loaded, waiting for the last moment. Reynold took advantage of this opportunity to sit in the cockpit of the AS and let out a sigh as if he had just walked down a long journey. Reynold didn't know how many worlds he had been to, nor did he remember how many times he had reset the world. The only thing he remembered was that the result of every reset would not be what he wanted, and it would always give him a fatal blow at the critical moment. Therefore, every time he faced a decisive battle, before seizing the device, Reynold would always recall the long journey at this moment, and the memories were still unusually clear. Among them, there were his enemies, his subordinates, and the few warm memories that were like a flash in the pan. Finally, I've come to this step again. It's just that this step is different from the past. Now, the super heavy rockets quietly waiting for the final moment of launch were not technology that could be mastered in this world. This was the technology provided by Miss Q. It was suggested by Mr. J and suggested by Miss Q. Reynold had no idea where this technology came from, nor was he interested in finding out. All he knew was that this technology would allow the amalgam elites he led to descend from the sky and launch a surprise attack on Merida Island, the headquarters of Mithril. Even if at this moment, with the help of the traitor Qian Shanwu, Mithril had built a defense circle around the Pacific Rim, it was useless. The only thing that Leonard cared about was whether the knight, Ray Minkai, would discover his actions. Sir Reynold, there are 30 seconds left before launch. While Reynold was thinking about his next move, Sabina's voice sounded on the communication channel. Sabina Lafonio, Lee Fuel, Wilhelm Casper. These three, who were regarded as Reynolds' right-hand men, were also on the list of participants. Other than Sabina, who was in the same silo as Reynold, the other two were appointed as the leaders of the other two teams. They led their subordinates to occupy Silo Number 2 and Silo Number 3 respectively. Yes, I got it. By the way, how is our distinguished guest? Reynold nodded. This time, in addition to Reynolds' contribution, Miss Q, as the technology provider, was also on the list of participants in this decisive battle. However, due to the small size of the body she used, she could only use a silo alone and lift off behind Reynold and the others. The lady's mood is stable. Sabina nodded in response. That's good. Sabina, inform everyone that everything is going according to plan. After we lift off, let the giant beasts lurking in the ocean begin to move. Don't wait for our carriage to arrive, they'll just arrive with their huge bodies. Yes, Sir Reynold. Do it now. A short 50 seconds passed quickly. After Sabina relayed Reynolds' order to the command center, the launch countdown reached 0. Launch. Boom! In the raging flames, the super-heavy rockets tore through the bone-chilling wind on the ice field, soared into the sky, and flew toward the empty space outside. Then, they returned from outer space, bypassed Mithril's defensive strongholds in the Pacific Rim, and headed straight for Mithril's headquarters, Merida Island. The decisive battle began. Above Merida Island, Avalon was quietly hiding in the white clouds, waiting for a certain moment to arrive. "This is my new job? What's with this dress? It's so awkward." Under the generous salary, Nami, who agreed to be hired by Euphemia, adjusted the dress that was made of exquisite materials and had patterns that Nami had never seen before. "Hello. I'm Mira Ramilla. I'm one of the people in charge here. From today on, we are colleagues." Under the guidance of the attendant, Mira also came to Nami and carefully looked at the new face, a stranger who was also a whisperer. "Mira? Ramilla? Do you have some kind of relationship with Master Lei Minkai?" Nami was stunned for a moment before she looked at Mira and asked, "Master Rei Minkai?" Mira was confused by Nami's address of Rei Minkai, and then she smiled and said, Yes. Rei Minkai is my brother. In addition, my brother is not Master Rei Minkai. If you can, you should call him Captain Knight or maybe Sir." "Knight? Sir?" At this moment, Nami remembered that when she was first brought here, she was surrounded by a group of stern-looking women in long-sleeved maid outfits. After a long struggle, she was finally free. Among them, Nami also vaguely remembered that an older maid specifically told her to pay attention to the way she addressed them and not rashly offend the Honorable Sir. This isn't really a royal ship, right?" Looking at Nami's shocked face, Mira also showed a smile of understanding. After all, not everyone could smoothly accept Rei Minkai's identity like Mira. Especially Nami, who had been in the human society of this world for a long time. It would probably take some time for her to fully accept the environment she was in now. It was just that there was not so much time for Nami to smoothly transition. All attention! All attention! The entire ship enters Level 1 combat state. The entire ship enters Level 1 combat state. Everyone immediately enters battle station. Everyone immediately enters battle station. The shrill alarm instantly tore through the air, and also made Nami subconsciously shudder. What's going on? Mira. Nami, who could not react to the sudden change of events, quickly pulled Mira and asked, "Battle! The battle has begun." "Nami, I'm very sorry. Now I can only let you learn how to stay on Avalon during the battle. Please come with me." Mira looked around, grabbed Nami's right hand, and walked quickly toward Neku. The order for Level 1 combat state had been issued, which meant that Rei Minkai must drive the Roaring Flame Demonic Sword to attack. Mira must give the Roaring Flame Demonic Sword to Rei Minkai in perfect condition as much as possible before that. Wait. I can walk on my own. Mira, lead the way." Nami hurriedly called out to Mira, and after indicating that she could keep up, she followed behind Mira and ran quickly toward Neku. In the bridge of Avalon, Euphemia sat on the throne, looking at the big screen in front of her with a solemn expression. On her left and right were Fianna and Rei Minkai. Below them were the Golden Partners, Royd and Sayer. "Your Majesty." The Knight Captain's guess was correct. The enemy is now using a system similar to the Apollo's Carriage, used by Viscount Layla to launch a surprise attack on Merida Island under our feet. According to the calculations, it is estimated that we will reach the optimal airborne altitude in 5 minutes. At that time, Merida Island will probably usher in a large-scale airborne battle. Royd held a laser pointer in his right hand and gestured at the orbit calculation map on the screen while explaining to Euphemia, Rei Minkai, and Fianna. "Can it be intercepted?" Euphemia asked. "Yes. But it's a bit difficult. Our anti-aircraft missiles on Avalon can intercept it. However, the AS in this world has an extremely unreasonable system, the Lambda Drive system. If the enemy can use the Lambda drive system in outer space to intercept our anti-aircraft missiles, then it means that our anti-aircraft missiles are useless. Royd shook his head and expressed his concern. In the previous battle records created by Ray Minkai using the Lambda drive system, Royd had already discovered the horror of the Lambda drive system. The existence of this system could not be analyzed by the laws of physics, and its characteristics subverted Royd's understanding of the world. Therefore, under this consideration, Royd did not recommend the use of anti-aircraft missiles in outer space. Kai, what about you? Euphemia pondered for a moment and looked at Ray Minkai. Royd's concern is correct. Now is not the best time to intercept. Compared to the obvious attack route of the anti-aircraft missile in outer space, the attack in the atmosphere is more difficult to defend against. After all, after the enemy enters the atmosphere, Avalon, and even our Lionheart Knight, can use many more attack methods. Are you worried that the enemy will use the Lambda drive system to offset the attack of the anti-aircraft missile? Yes, I understand. Then, Kai, you go and complete your mission. Here, leave Avalon to me. Euphemia pondered for a moment and quickly made a decision. Yes, Your Majesty. At the same time, the information monitored by Avalon in outer space was also sent to Merida Island, and the son of Dan knew what? The enemy used the orbital airborne method to launch a space attack on us and Merida Island? Holding the information obtained from Avalon, Teresa's small hands trembled slightly. She could not believe the information described on the paper. I'm afraid this is true, Captain. When I received the information from Avalon, I had already ordered people to search the suspect area. The results are consistent with the information from Avalon. Although Richard was also shocked by the information of the orbital airborne, he was much calmer than Teresa. Is that so? I didn't expect my brother, Leonard, to be so bold. Richard, do your best to search the sea near Merida Island. No, even the underwater information must be grasped clearly. Our enemy will not launch such a simple tactic as dropping from the sky. Yes, Captain. In fact, as Teresa expected, in the waters around Merida Island, there were indeed 6 huge black shadows. Looking from high up in the sky, these black shadows seemed to be as huge as whales swimming in the ocean. However, these were not whales, nor were they mysterious and indescribable existences. They were giant behemoths that had been hiding in the ocean under Leonard's orders. With the arrival of the carriage, used by Leonard, the giant behemoths that had been lurking in the ocean also began to move. They surrounded Merida Island from all directions. Orbital airborne, attack by giant behemoths, this was not all that the amalgam had launched. The moment the giant behemoths set off huge waves and appeared from the ocean, an energy fluctuation that humans could not capture with the naked eye, but which had a terrible impact on human society, suddenly erupted. In just a short moment, the electronic devices on Merida Island that had not received protection were instantly overloaded. All the chips were burned, and they fell into the abyss of eternal damnation that could not be activated. Teresa couldn't help but straighten her body, her small hands clenched tightly. She also heard the nervous and panicked voice of the correspondent in her ears. Reporting. Our communication with the operations headquarters has been cut off. Even the communication network around the world has been disconnected. Disconnected. In that instant, the communication with the operations headquarters had been cut off. Even if the correspondent and technical staff immediately checked and repaired the communication equipment, they could not reverse the fact that the communication had been cut off. Avalon. Is the connection with Avalon still there? Suddenly, Teresa seemed to be like a drowning person who had grabbed onto the last life-saving straw. She urged the correspondent repeatedly. Yes. Connecting. Captain, please wait a moment. Amidst the sweat on the correspondent's forehead, the communication with Avalon was finally connected. Captain Teresa, is the situation on your side okay? The image flashed, and Euphemia appeared on the main screen. Compared to her expression and the surrounding atmosphere, the situation on Avalon seemed to be much more stable than on Teresa's side. Our communication with the operations headquarters has been cut off. Now, the only one we can contact is Avalon. Teresa glanced at her subordinates who were still repairing the communication equipment, then nodded at Euphemia. Good. Avalon will share the battlefield situation information with you. Mithril, it's time to attack. Of course. Your Majesty. Richard, let Melissa and the others attack. Richard, who had seen the two women reach an agreement in just a few words, responded loudly. Yes, Captain. Chapter 423. Suddenly, several white spots lit up in the blue sky. The sparkling white dots were extremely eye-catching in this endless, cloudless sky. Under the sky, dozens of pillars of smoke suddenly rose from the seemingly isolated island, rushing toward the white dots that streaked across the sky like meteors in broad daylight. These were the various types of air defense missiles that Mithril could purchase from arms companies from various countries during this period of time. Although the models were messy, Mithril itself was an organization formed by mercenaries from various countries. Therefore, they did not encounter many obstacles. Using the air defense force formed by various models as the foundation, they successfully formed an air defense position around Merida Island. At this moment, the smoke columns rising from the island were from the air defense missiles launched by various air defense areas. Will it succeed? Everyone's eyes followed the air defense missile as it streaked across the sky. Their breathing slowed down as they waited for the moment the air defense missile hit the target. Distance 3,000. Distance 2,000. Distance 1,000. CIC's crisp voice repeatedly reported the distance between the anti-aircraft missile and the target, the carriage that was traversing the sky. Close. Close. About to hit the target. Counting down from 10 seconds. 10. 9. All of a sudden, the surveillance camera captured a shocking scene. It disintegrated. One of the several carriages across the sky suddenly disintegrated, and the moment the fairing was torn apart by the powerful gravity and airflow, a flash of light burst out from the scattered wreckage without warning. Schwa! Everyone who was watching the surveillance screen suddenly felt their eyes light up. The entire screen seemed to turn white at this moment, and it was impossible to see the original image of the air defense missile hitting the target. This sudden white light only dominated the screen for a brief moment. The second after the white light disappeared, everyone was surprised to find that the air defense missile that should have hit the target had disappeared. It was as if the air defense missile had never been launched in the first place. If it were not for the flashing icons on the screen in front of CIC showing that all the air defense missiles had disappeared, everyone would have thought that this illusion was real. However, the shock caused by the disappearance of the air defense missiles was far from enough. What was even more shocking was the figure that revealed its true appearance from the disintegrated carriage. A pitch-black body. A sharp streamline. The pitch-black mechanical body, which was emitting an ominous aura, was slowly floating in the sky. The moment this body appeared on the screen, it made people subconsciously think that the scene just now should be caused by this body. In other words, the air defense missiles that Mithril had prepared for a long time were destroyed by this mysterious AS. Fallen Angel. Leonard, it's really you. Ray Minkai calmly watched the scene of the fallen angel, who obtained the ability to fly with the mysterious Lambda drive system, destroying all the air defense missiles of Mithril in a gorgeous way. Knight, please give the order. Fianna, the captain of the guards with high combat power, couldn't hold back. Under the gorgeous appearance created by Leonard's fallen angel. Avalon, launch all the missiles. In addition, except for Fianna and me, the rest of the Lionheart Knight will follow the battle plan and defend Avalon and Merida Island respectively. Ray Minkai nodded and immediately issued the order to attack. The opportunity was fleeting. Now that the fallen angel had taken the lead, any hesitation would lead to the possibility of their defeat. Only Rei Minkai, only the roaring flame demonic sword, which had the same powerful combat power and the ability to fly on its own, could delay or even defeat the fallen angel. Yes, Knight. Avalon, while removing the Utopia system, launched the first round of full missile launch. Then launched the air defense attack with full force. As soon as Royd received Rei Minkai's order, he immediately gave the corresponding order. At this moment, above the sky, the moment the fallen angel annihilated all the air defense missiles, the carriages following behind it flew past the fallen angel's body at an extremely fast speed. After flying for a distance, they entered the same disintegration process, freeing the many lords of hell protected inside the alloy protective cover. Boom! The high-altitude airflow whistled through the wreckage of the carriages and unreasonably pushed the lords of hell that had not yet fully unfolded higher into the sky. However, this was also temporary. Under the control of Sabina, Li Fule, and other elite pilots, their lords of hell easily controlled the body that had become extremely difficult to control under the high-altitude turbulence. However, not every pilot who participated in this decisive battle could easily resolve the negative effects caused by the high-altitude turbulence like Sabina, Li Fule, and the others. Ah! Sir Leonard! Save me! Bang! A piece of wreckage that had disintegrated from the carriage rolled at lightning speed under the impact of the high-altitude turbulence and crashed into a lord of hell that did not have the time to unfold its body to offset the negative effects of the high-altitude turbulence caused by the high-altitude turbulence. As a result, the wreckage that did not seem sharp easily tore a small hole in the cockpit of the lords of hell at an extremely fast speed. In just an instant, the extreme cold contained in the high-altitude turbulence had swept the pilot, who only had time to call for help from Reynold, into a freezing hell with no hope of escape. This, looking at the lords of hell that stopped moving because the pilot was frozen in an instant, and under the attraction of gravity, they fell faster and faster toward the sea below. Li Fule and the others could not help but click in their hearts. Die in battle. They were not afraid, because this was their destiny and also their destiny. From the moment they picked up the gun and sat in the cockpit of the AS, Li Fule and the others had already left death behind and focused on dealing with the threat of any enemy. However, Li Fule and the others could not accept the fact that they were frozen to death before they could even fire their first shot. Everyone, prepare to resist the impact. The enemy's second wave of attack is coming. Leonard, who was floating steadily high in the sky and looking down at Merida Island below, stared at the sky that began to boil. There, as the ripples caused by a wave of light waves spread, a floating battleship floating above Merida Island quickly appeared in Leonard's field of vision. At the same time, a large number of anti-aircraft missiles, which at first glance looked like they were launched by Merida Island, rose into the air from the back of the floating battleship. Boom! 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 After the 200 series missile launcher equipped by Avalon frantically fired all the anti-aircraft missiles it was equipped with the help of the wheel loading system, it quickly and accurately loaded new anti-aircraft missiles and launched them. In less than a minute, the back of Avalon had been covered by the smoke caused by the 200 series missile launcher's frantic firing. Looking from afar, at this moment, Avalon seemed to be embraced by a pile of gradually spreading white clouds. Defense! Defense! Quick! Leonard did not give the order, but it did not mean that Li Fule and the others would sit still and be drowned by the sea of missiles launched by Avalon. High in the sky, the kings of hell, who were struggling to control their bodies to maintain their balance, raised their right hands one after another. While triggering the protective screen of the Lambda drive system, they also contracted their stretched bodies to reduce the obstructed area as much as possible, striving to descend at the fastest speed possible and rush into Avalon's blind spot. This was the right thing to do. However, even if the kings of hell, who had accelerated again, could survive the sea of missiles launched by Avalon, it would be difficult for them to complete the last step of the orbital airborne operation at such a high speed under the conditions of insufficient height. However, in the face of the frenzied firing and the endless sea of missiles, Li Fulei and the others knew that this was not an option they could choose at all. Boom! Boom! It took a long time to say, but it was done quickly. The terrifying sea of missiles had already rushed in front of the Kings of Hell piloted by Li Fulei and the others and triggered a series of mid-air explosions. This was a simple strategy developed by Royd after he had a detailed understanding of the characteristics of the Lambda drive system. Since the Lambda drive system had to complete the general triggering process of witnessing and activating the mind, then the detonation mode of all the anti-aircraft missiles was changed from triggering detonation to near detonation. As long as the anti-aircraft missile entered within a certain distance of the target, it would immediately detonate the warhead, and the countless metal fragments buried in the warhead would pour out towards the target. This was the mode of attack that Royd could come up with in a short period of time. Although the screen triggered by the Lambda drive system could resist all physical attacks, the upper limit of the attack resistance varied from person to person. Otherwise, in the original timeline, Sagayoshi Sosuke, who had recovered, would not have been able to fight 1-against-5 without any injuries. He also wouldn't have been able to defeat the 5 Hell Kings without any injuries. Royd had reason to believe that the Kings of Hell assembled by Leonard were the strongest combat force of the amalgam, but among this strongest combat force, there were definitely weaklings who could not escape from the sea of missiles set up by him. Boom! Woo 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 woo! Amidst the continuous explosions, the metal fragments whistled through the air. The number of metal fragments was more than the anti-aircraft missiles that rose into the air, and the terrifying metal fragments almost rushed towards the Kings of Hell from all directions. 1 piece, 2 pieces. Almost endless metal fragments were stuck on the screen of the Lambda drive system. Li Fulei and the others gritted their teeth and used all methods to get out of this hell of iron formed by the terrifying metal fragments as quickly as possible. It was not that they could not offset the incoming metal fragments, but in the face of the omnidirectional steel torrent attack caused by the absolute number of metal fragments, the Lambda drive system, which was claimed to be able to change the power rules of the world, seemed a little powerless. Gotcha! Suddenly, a familiar sound suddenly sounded from the communication channel. It was the sound caused by the metal fragments tearing apart the armor of the Kings of Hell. Ah! Boom! In Li Fulei's eyes, the moment the defense of the Kings of Hell driven by one of his subordinates was torn apart by a metal fragment that came out of nowhere, it was immediately drowned by more and more terrifying metal fragments, until that ball of fire that represented the existence of this subordinate exploded. Damn it! Speed up! Speed up! Anger. But what could he do? In the air where his feet could not touch the ground, even the Kings of Hell with the black technology of the Lambda drive system could not escape unscathed when faced with the terrifying number of steel torrents that were impossible to guard against. Buzz! At this moment, Li Fulei and the others could only grit their teeth and accelerate in an attempt to break through the steel flood that engulfed the sky. However, a ray of light that made the sun lose its brilliance suddenly descended from the sky, sweeping through everything in its path and wiping out all the steel flood that was blocking Li Fulei and the others. "Madam, you're here." Reynold, who had been silently watching his subordinates struggling in the sea of missiles, slowly turned his gaze and looked at the fallen angel's side. A dark red airframe with a round horn, a single eye, and a pair of jet engines on both shoulders slowly put away the long gun in its hand that was different from the standard firearms commonly used in the current world. The airframe had a pair of jet engines on its shoulders, and its feet were like that of a fallen angel as it released waves of energy ripples in a rhythmic manner. "The enemy, the knight, I'm afraid he has already guessed our actions." Miss Q's voice came from the red-horned body. In this regard, Reynolds just smiled lightly. That's inevitable. In the face of the Pacific Rim Defense Circle, there are only a few offensive strategies we can use. In this case, no one will make a mistake. It's either A or B. Then, why did you use this method so readily? In the ambush just now, you lost 2 elite subordinate. Miss Q had already separated from her carriage from the beginning and silently watched the actions of Reynolds and the others from a higher altitude. It was not until the moment Li Fule and the others were submerged in the anti-aircraft missiles that she began to move. Everything has to have a sense of novelty, right, madam? Reynolds didn't explain his thoughts. Instead, he spoke out his thoughts calmly. Then, the fallen angel slowly raised his finger and pointed at Avalon below. Look, madam, the enemy we are waiting for has already set off. Knight Ray Minkai. After Reynolds slowly said Ray Minkai's name, he looked at the red body next to him. Madam, I wonder if you can give him to me? I have some matters that I need to settle with the knight. Miss Q was silent. Compared to giving him to Reynolds, Miss Q wanted to personally deal with Ray Minkai. But Miss Q nodded her head lightly. Then, Mr. Reynolds, as an ally, I agree to your request. Thank you very much, dear madam. Chapter 424. The continuous explosions above his head and the cold cockpit below him didn't affect Cruz's eager heart at all. A loud whistle represented Kurlut's mood at the moment. That's amazing! A missile attack of this scale can probably affect the direction of the battlefield. Looking at the cloud formed by the tail smoke of the missile, which almost enveloped Avalon, no one would not be shocked by the visual impact released by it. Melissa slowly exhaled, her sharp eyes looking at the missile that was still breaking through the sky and crazily rushing towards the horizon. Hey! I didn't expect to have boarded this ship before. What a surprise! It's here. Just when everyone was shocked by the terrifying firepower displayed by Avalon at this time, Xiangliang Sosuke noticed another aspect. There was something strange in the sea around Merida Island. Under his gaze, waves of water exploded in the air. As the water that refracted bits of sunlight fell, the body that once fought with Xiangliang Sosuke at the port, the giant beast, appeared. Leonard had arranged in the surrounding waters in advance, and used the vast sea to hide the giant beast army. When the King of Hell's Space Force was intercepted by Avalon, they had arrived at the edge of the territorial waters of Merida Island. Colonel, at least 4 giant beasts have appeared around Merida. According to the position and distance detected by the radar, these giant beasts seem to have surrounded our Merida Island. The CIC spoke very quickly, but Teresa could hear her clearly. Major Kalinin, do you think we can ignore the poison, King of Hell, that came out of nowhere? Teresa did not immediately give the order to deal with the attack of the giant beast. Instead, she asked Kalinin, who was standing next to her, a question. Kalinin pondered for a moment and shook his head slightly. No. To be honest, the firepower displayed by that ship really surprised me. But in fact, I'm afraid it can't intercept all the poison, King of Hell. After all, their speed of descent is very fast. Coupled with the unknown ability of the Lambda drive system, I'm afraid we have to be prepared to face both the poison and the giant beasts on land at the same time. Kalinin's opinion was not beyond Teresa's expectations. To be honest, Teresa also expected the same thing. Report. The goal was to break through Avalon's anti-air firepower net. There were 3 of them. No. The number is still increasing. Hearing this, Teresa, who looked at the screen, saw 3 Hell Kings with eye-catching paint rush out of the terrifying missile defense line that Avalon had single-handedly built. Following closely behind were several Hell Kings that were all painted in green and gray. It was not difficult to see that even if these Lords of Hell were able to escape from Avalon's terrifying firepower, they were not in a good situation. The 3 Hell Kings that could be recognized as the captain's Mecha at a glance might be better. However, the kings of hell following behind them were not so lucky. Boom! At the moment when almost all the lucky Hell Kings rushed out of the terrifying missile defense line, a Hell King that still had wisps of flames left trembled violently and exploded with a bang. In the midst of the flames that erupted in that instant, the cracks that were deeply engraved on the armor of the Hell Kings on its left and right were particularly eye-catching. Inform Eurus too to let them begin. Looking at Avalon's missile attack that was gradually stopping, Teresa knew that the enemy's first wave of attack had come to an end. Next would be hand-to-hand combat. However, before the Hell Kings could safely land on Merida Island, they still needed to pass through a second checkpoint. A ghostly green light bloomed wantonly in the hatch that Avalon had opened. Under the powerful levitation kinetic energy brought about by the ghostly green light wings, silver airframes shot up into the sky from Avalon's takeoff runway like sharp arrows. Then, they were divided into several attack groups and pounced on the Hell Kings that had already landed and opened their parachutes like goshawks hunting rabbit. Le Foulet. We've been set up. Sabina was shocked when she saw the silver airframes that shot up into the sky from Avalon. Calm down. Sir Leonard had expected this situation. We don't have to rely on parachutes anymore. Casper, before we land on the ground, please cover us. Le Foulet did not panic. Instead, he calmly gave on-the-spot commands according to Leonard's tactical arrangements. Casper, who was born in a famous sniper family, naturally did not need Le Foulet's reminder. As soon as he saw the silver airframe soaring in the sky like a goshawk waiting for an opportunity to kill its prey, he knew that he had to complete the mission. Therefore, under his control, the moment the parachute opened, his vehicle raised the sniper cannon that he had already held in his hand and quickly locked onto a silver airframe that had just passed through the gradually dissipating fire cloud. The silver goshawk now is just a fledgling. In Casper's eyes, although the silver airframe that had the ability to fly independently was a problem, in fact, it was not obvious that the pilots of these silver airframes did not seem to have experienced many battles of life and death. Therefore, Casper, who had already experienced life and death countless times on the battlefield, easily captured the weakness of the silver airframe that he had locked onto. One airframe, however, Casper's voice had not yet faded when his vehicle was suddenly swept up by a violent vibration, causing Casper's finger that was about to pull the trigger to loosen its grip. Casper, what's going on? At the same time, Le Foulet also noticed the abnormality on Casper's side. No. It seems that we've really been set up by the enemy. The enemy knows of my existence. Casper raised his head slightly and clearly saw that there was a hole in the parachute that was supposed to support the King of Hell's slow descent. Without a doubt, at the moment when Casper fired just now, someone discovered him and beat him to the punch by firing the first bullet. Le Foulet. Force the landing. Now, Casper, whose parachute was damaged, had no other choice but to choose the most thrilling option. And without the cover of a powerful sniper like Casper, Le Foulet and the others could only make the same choice. Bang! Bang! The sound of explosive bolts exploding meant that the King of Hell, led by Le Foulet, Sabina, and Casper, had chosen to force the landing from a height of hundreds of meters. However, even if they could land smoothly, they would probably struggle bitterly in the encirclement of the Lionheart Knight, Melissa, Kurlutz, and Sosuke Xiangliang, who had begun to surround them from the sky. At the same time, in the sky, in the fire cloud that lost the continuous bombardment and gradually faded away, Rei Minkai's roaring flame demonic sword and Fianna's Lionheart Knight commander type, Shadow Lion, tore through the layers of clouds and came to the front of the fallen angel and the red-horned body. The two sides did not start a fight at the moment they met. Instead, they confronted each other as if they were sizing up each other's existence. Fallen angel. Rei Minkai was no stranger to it. However, Lei Minkai frowned when he saw the red-horned mech hovering beside the fallen angel with thrusters on its shoulders. Although the body's appearance had undergone some modifications, The obvious appearance features and the thrusters on the shoulders almost made Ray Minkai recognize its true appearance in an instant. Red Wildebeest. The body that came from Gauda 0083. It was the body that Xeon's henchman, Seema Kalahau, obtained after a major modification after robbing the AE Society for the Federation Army's Dare prototype model number 4. However, the body in front of him that was extremely similar to the Red Wildebeest had a huge difference in size. The body that was designed based on the Red Wildebeest? If that's the case, the pilot who is piloting this body is probably her, Miss Q. As soon as this idea appeared, it received the approval of the White Cat State Zero. The figure of the White Cat State Zero silently appeared next to Ray Minkai's right hand. The pair of golden pupils flashed with a bone-chilling murderous aura. Miss Q. She's inside that red mech. The front paws of the White Cat State Zero trembled slightly, as if it would tear Miss apart without hesitation as long as there was an opportunity. Calm down, State Zero. Ray Minkai comforted the White Cat State Zero, and then looked at the fallen angel, who raised her right hand, indicating that they could talk. Knight Captain. Fianna also saw the fallen angel's action. Let's see what Reynold has to say first. Ray Minkai lowered his gaze and glanced at the battle situation below. He had some confidence. Reynold wanted to stall for time, but Ray Minkai did not care. The kings of hell that had landed on Merida Island were probably the troops led by Li Fule. He believed that with the cooperation of the Lionheart Knight and the Mithril M9, Li Fule and the others should be able to fully enjoy the enthusiasm of a tropical island. Moreover, even if there was the existence of the world's #1 sniper like Casper among them, Ray Minkai had asked Kurlutz to prepare in advance. He was afraid that they would not be able to make any waves. We meet again, Knight. Reynolds' voice came from the international public channel. Reynold, are you still holding on to the hope of persuading me? Ray Minkai sneered and said sarcastically. Why can't I? One more friend is always one more enemy, isn't it? Moreover, I think we may have a common language, Knight. Reynolds seemed to be implying something. Ray Minkai's gaze fell on the Red Wildebeest again. Is it Miss Q? I don't know what she said to you, but I can tell you clearly that there is no room for reconciliation between you and me. Ever since the day I chose Teresa. Ray Minkai's rejection made Reynolds sigh secretly. Then, between us, only one of us can fall. Madam, do it. Da-da-da-da. Before Reynolds' voice fell, the fallen angel raised her right hand in an instant and shot wildly at the flame demon's sword with the large-caliber machine gun hidden in it. At the same time, under the fallen angel's crazy shooting, the Red Wildebeest's figure swayed and rushed toward the flame demon's sword like lightning. It wanted to take advantage of the flame demon's sword being restrained by the fallen angel to succeed in one shot. However, the Red Wildebeest was already under Fianna's surveillance. The moment the Red Wildebeest moved, Fianna's Shadow Lion was one step ahead and took the advantageous position. It raised its hand and launched a catapult claw attack. Bang! Facing the catapult claw, Miss Q did not hesitate to give up the opportunity to attack the flame demon's sword. Instead, she flew up and kicked the catapult claw away. Moreover, she raised the beam machine gun in her hand and fired continuously at the Shadow Lion. The Red Wildebeest's movements were very fast, but the Shadow Lion's movements were even faster. As the first Photoshop, Fianna's combat power was undoubtedly powerful now that she was no longer limited by her lifespan. The moment the catapult claw was kicked away by the Red Wildebeest, Fianna had already foreseen the Red Wildebeest's next move and drove the Shadow Lion one step ahead to avoid the attack. Therefore, the Red Wildebeest's continuous shooting did not pose any threat to the Shadow Lion. Don't underestimate people. The Shadow Lion's maneuverability surprised Miss Q. She did not expect the body in front of her to be able to maintain such a high level of maneuverability in the atmosphere. Is it that pair of light wings? Miss Q stared at the pair of light wings behind the Shadow Lion and knew that this battle would take some time. Reynold, my mission is like this. The next step is up to you. Neither Ray Minkai nor Reynold paid any attention to the battle between Fianna and Miss Q. They knew that being distracted in a battle with the opponent was undoubtedly an extremely stupid mistake. Da. It was still the fallen angel. The moment the red wildebeest was entangled by the Shadow Lion, the fallen angel raised both of her hands and madly fired a barrage of bullets at the flame lion with the 40mm cannon hidden in her left hand and the large-caliber machine gun in her right hand. However, this rather impressive barrage of bullets was blocked by the radiation shield of the raging flame demon sword. Energy shield? Looking at the layer of light green energy shield, Reynolds smiled slightly and the fallen angel quickly retreated in the next second. At the same time, the fallen angel's strongest trump card, the Big Bow, was quickly unfolded and held in the fallen angel's right hand. Reynolds did not dare to be careless. Earlier, when Mr. J recovered the wreckage of 9 dragons, he had found a video of Ray Minkai driving a crossbow in the wreckage. That sword, it was beyond Reynolds' imagination. The power of the Lambda drive system was already in Reynolds' hands. In the long years, Reynolds' mastery of the Lambda drive system had reached a terrifying level. But even so, Reynolds could not guarantee that he could reach the terrifying level of Ray Minkai's sword. Full power. Must use full power. Only with full power, Reynolds had the confidence to defeat Ray Minkai. Chapter 425. Invisible Arrows. In the sky, there was nothing else except for the fallen angel, who was moving quickly and changing her position. But the radiant light shield of the raging flame demon sword was constantly under attack. It couldn't be seen, but he could feel the storm-like attack from the energy scale of the radiant light shield in front of him. The ability of the fallen angel was as strange and terrifying as Ray Minkai remembered. If it weren't for the radiant light shield's powerful defense, Ray Minkai would have fallen into the same powerless state as Xiangliang Soji when he faced the fallen angel. However, even with the powerful defense of the radiant light shield, which prevented the raging flame demon sword from being destroyed by the fallen angel's invisible arrows, Ray Minkai couldn't accept this one-sided situation. Ow! It's starting. Ray Minkai looked at the ripples on the radiant light shield and shouted in a low voice. Understood. Stand by. Under the radiant light shield, the raging flame demon sword suddenly raised its head and its eyes suddenly flashed. At the same time, the pair of light wings behind the raging flame demon sword flapped and separated it from the fallen angel's shooting axes. Although the fallen angel's invisible arrows were very terrifying, in fact, as long as one had a faster speed, it was possible to escape from the fallen angel's shooting range and reduce the number of times the fallen angel used the invisible arrows as much as possible. This was a very simple thing to say, but it was very difficult to actually do it. The original Raging Flame Demon sword not only couldn't do it, but also because of the difference in the performance of the body, it was in a situation where it could only stand on the ground and watch the fallen angel fly around. However, this was in the past. No, it was something that would never happen in this world. Now, the brand new Raging Flame Demon sword created by combining the all-metal world and the technology tree of the Britannia Empire wouldn't happen, and it wouldn't suffer the same ending. Under the urging of the pair of dazzling light wings, the Raging Flame Demon sword's speed became faster and faster, almost making it impossible for Leonard's eyes to catch up with its figure. Naturally, the bow in the fallen angel's hand slowly lowered and put on a posture of wanting to chase after the Raging Flame Demon sword. It's really fast. Reynolds couldn't help but sneer as he watched the demonic Raging Flame sword move so fast that he couldn't even catch it. Although the fallen angel's bow was temporarily unusable, it did not mean that the fallen angel's attack would stop because of this. In the next second, a gust of wind gathered. A black shadow suddenly appeared in front of the rapidly moving Raging Flame Demon sword. Bang! The sound of metal clashing resounded through the sky. "It's flying pretty fast." Ray Minkai's voice rang out. It turned out that the gale was the fallen angel who had burst forth with extreme speed. The instant she caught up to the raging flame magic sword, she swung out a sharp hand blade that went straight for the raging flame magic sword's head. Of course, although this attack was incomparably swift, it was still narrowly blocked by Lei Minkai without any mishap. "Same to you, Knight." As Leonard's voice rang out, the fallen angel quickly sent out a whip kick. Bang! Another sound of metal clashing resounded. The fallen angel's whip kick didn't hit the raging flame demon sword. Instead, the raging flame demon sword used the same whip kick to block the fallen angel's kick. "There's a flaw, Reynold." "Humph." Reynold snorted coldly. A dazzling light suddenly erupted between the fallen angel and the raging flame demon sword, forcibly separating the fallen angel and the raging flame demon's sword with a violent explosion. Behind this sudden burst of light, Reynold didn't take advantage of the situation to open up a large distance. Instead, he quickly controlled the fallen angel to raise the bow again, following the direction he could feel, and sent out a strong attack. Buzz! The moment the invisible arrow flew out, the dazzling light seemed to distort at this moment. However, before the distortion disappeared, Reynold suddenly felt a chill in his heart. His subconscious erupted with an impulse to protect himself. Buzz! This defensive impulse from the depths of his subconscious instantly activated the defense of the fallen angel's lambda drive system. Boom! It's a hook claw. It was unknown when, no, perhaps it was when the fallen angel pulled the bowstring again and shot the invisible arrow. The sharp claws had already pounced on the fallen angel under the cover of the strong light. "It's just a hook claw." The sudden hook claw didn't cause even a trace of injury to the fallen angel. Instead, it made Reynold feel humiliated. While his eyebrows twitched, the fallen angel's lambda drive system also actively responded to Reynold's spiritual fluctuations at this moment. Twist, twist, twist again. The lambda drive system screen that blocked the hook claw twisted the hook claw crazily, exerting a terrifying force on the hook claw, pushing it step by step to the point of complete annihilation. However, as soon as Reynolds' annihilation hook claw started, it was interrupted by another hook claw flying from the left. "Knight, do you rely on these gadgets to defeat the enemy?" The fallen angel waved his hand, and the two hook claws were suddenly sent flying by a shock wave. "Gadgets? Compared to your invisible arrows, my arrows are nothing." Reynolds' question didn't have any effect on Ray Minkai at all. After all, the existence of the hook claw was just a regular equipment for Ray Minkai and even the members of the Night Corps behind him. Compared to Reynolds' invisible arrow, it seemed to be more honorable. 222. The fire god cannon on the head of the fiery demon sword frantically poured all the ammunition it had at the fallen angel, trying to create an opportunity for the fiery demon sword to slash the fallen angel with the radiation vibration sword in its hand. However, although the attack of the fire god cannon on the head was fierce, it was still not enough for the body equipped with the lambda drive system. Reynolds just concentrated a little and easily blocked the attack of the fire god cannon on the head. What was worth Reynolds' attention was the radiation vibration sword in the fiery demon sword's hand. When the sword came, the fallen angel quickly raised his right hand, and a brighter but more solid screen blocked the blade of the fiery demon sword. Buzz! The blade was blocked. But this was not all of Reynolds' actions. The moment the blade of the fiery demon sword was blocked, the fallen angel raised his left hand, revealing the 40mm cannon hidden on his wrist, and pointed it directly at the cockpit of the fiery demon sword. Boom! Reynolds was very decisive and ruthless. The moment he pulled the trigger was very precise. According to common sense, even with the help of the lambda drive system, not many bodies could withstand such a close attack launched by the fallen angel. The blade of the fiery demon sword was still stuck in the screen. The smoke raised by the attack that was launched at almost zero distance also blew away, revealing, impossible. Reynolds' pupils suddenly shrank. But even faster was the movement of him piloting the fallen angel to retreat. With a push and a retraction, the blade that was stuck in the screen suddenly fell, but it didn't hit the fallen angel. Your reaction is very fast. As the blade was waved, the remaining smoke was blown away, revealing the intact fiery demon sword. The power of the Lambda drive system? Knight, you surprised me. Reynolds' eyes flickered slightly, and he couldn't help but have a trace of examination. In the moment of life and death, Reynolds thought that the opportunity to succeed in one strike was just a failed performance. No, this is not a surprise. I was just prepared. As the last trace of smoke dissipated, the radiation shield with a faint light quietly appeared in Reynolds' sight. This energy shield again? Reynolds was stunned, as if he didn't expect that the radiation shield that was supposed to be fixed around the body of the fiery demon sword could actually provide a degree of defense for the fiery demon sword in a way that was similar to coating. It's just a small trick. Ray Minkai smiled slightly. The radiation shield was able to reach such a level because of Royd and Myra's joint development against the fiery demon sword. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to achieve such results in such a short period of time. Don't underestimate people too much. Reynolds clenched his teeth, and the fallen angel moved quickly again. Judging from the fallen angel's action of clenching his bow once again, Reynolds should have made up his mind to fight the flaming demon's sword using a wandering tactic. Don't think about leaving. In terms of speed, the fiery demon's sword won't lose to the fallen angel. With a flap of its light wings, the fiery demon's sword turned into a stream of light and chased after him. And this scene was seen by Miss Q. What? Reynolds was actually suppressed by that night? Miss Q. was very clear about the performance of the fallen angel. In other words, part of the technology used by Miss Q. was also derived from the technology used by the fallen angel. Therefore, in Miss Q's knowledge, the fallen angel with good performance was actually suppressed by the fiery demon sword. How could Miss Q. not be shocked? While shocked, Miss Q. subconsciously wanted to go support Reynolds. Unexpectedly, before Miss Q's red wildebeest flew far, Fianna's shadow lion blocked in front of the red wildebeest. Your opponent is me. In the cold female voice, there was a sense of oppression that couldn't be ignored. This enemy was very strong. When Miss Q. heard Fianna's voice for the first time, Miss Q. immediately had this feeling in her heart. Move! The red wildebeest's beam machine gun was suddenly raised. It didn't even look at the shadow lion as it madly fired. In an instant, the front of the shadow lion was enveloped by the storm. Facing the red wildebeest's torrential attack, Fianna's expression was calm. She only moved her hands and feet slightly, and the shadow lion under her control was like a butterfly among the flowers. It lightly shuttled through the flowers without a trace of pollen on it. Moreover, the distance between the two wasn't far. Even if the red wildebeest's attack was very fierce, it still couldn't slow down the shadow lion's speed at all. The light and agile shadow lion only took less than half a minute to rush out of the red wildebeest's attack range and arrived above the red wildebeest. In the next second, a black shadow attacked. Miss Q. instinctively controlled the red wildebeest to raise its right arm to block. Bang! Unexpectedly, Miss Q. first heard an explosion like a gunshot, followed by the sound of metal colliding with metal. Moreover, it wasn't only the sound that accompanied it, but also the powerful impact that made Miss Q. unable to stabilize her body in time. Under the strong impact, the red wildebeest's feet rippled rapidly. The thrusters on both sides of its shoulders were constantly shooting out blazing flames, trying to stabilize the red wildebeest's body in the shortest time possible. While the red wildebeest was shaking, Miss Q saw the real culprit that made the red wildebeest fly backward from the screen in front of her. A smoky bullet shell was thrown out of the Shadow Lion's right arm by the projectile opening. Looking at the mechanism that gradually closed as the bullet was thrown out, Miss Q. It wasn't difficult for Miss Q to see that it was the Shadow Lion's right arm that gave the red wildebeest a fierce blow. This was the Spectacled Hound's specialty bullet punch. It was also the close-range combat trump card of Ziliku, Fianna, and Titania, the three ace pilots from the armored cavalry world. Quite sturdy. Fianna looked at the red wildebeest's right arm that only had a slight injury that was almost negligible. She was somewhat surprised. Fianna was very clear about the power of the bullet punch. This wasn't the model used by the Spectacled Hound. It was a brand new bullet punch that was redesigned according to the model used by the Spectacled Hound. When testing the performance, Ziliku, as the test pilot, tried to use this bullet punch. With one hit, it made a big hole in a 10,000-ton battleship. Such a powerful force couldn't even hurt the red wildebeest in front of her. What exactly was this body made of? Fianna didn't know the answer to this question, and she didn't want to know. The only thing she knew was that she had to stop Miss Q to create time and space for the battle between Ray Minkai and Reynold. Buzz! The red wildebeest that stabilized its body didn't stop at all. Instead, when Fianna was surprised that she couldn't break the red wildebeest's defense, it once again launched a storm-like attack. But this time Miss Q learned from her mistakes. After witnessing the high mobility of the Shadow Lion, Miss Q decisively gave up the idea of opening up a distance and shooting at the Shadow Lion. Instead, she used shooting as support and close-range combat as the main attack method. The red wildebeest opened and closed its hand, and a beam knife appeared in its hand. When the particle beam burst out, the beam saber in the red wildebeest's hand mercilessly rushed towards the Shadow Lion's head. Buzz! An ear-piercing energy impact suddenly exploded. It was the radiation shield. The moment the beam knife went straight for the head of the Shadow Lion, the radiation shield appeared. Energy shield. Troublesome thing. When the radiation shield that blocked the beam knife appeared, Miss Q. She immediately knew that the battle would be in a stalemate for a while. Perhaps this was the reason why Reynold had been suppressed. Compared to the red wildebeest that had a beam weapon, the only thing that could cause great damage to the energy shield was the big bow and the lambda drive system. Chapter 426. One shot, two shots, countless shots. Even Leonard was unable to remember how many invisible arrows his fallen angel had shot out. No matter how the fallen angel targeted the raging flame demon sword under his control, it was unable to break through that annoying green light shield. Since the start of the battle, the fallen angel's attacks were all blocked by the radiation light shield of the raging flame demon sword. If it wasn't for Leonard's keen observation that under the fallen angel's fierce attacks, the radiation light shield of the raging flame demon sword would show signs of flickering, Leonard would have subconsciously thought that the radiation light shield could block an endless amount of attacks. But even if Leonard caught the weakness of the radiation light shield, at the moment, the fallen angel's attacks were still unable to touch the limit of the radiation light shield. Can I only use that move? Leonard's eyes flashed and he made a decision in his heart. At the same time, the fallen angel's movements suddenly changed. From moving back and forth unpredictably, it gradually changed into a head-on stance. His movements changed? Leonard gave up on using that big bow? The moment the fallen angel's movements changed, Ray Minkai caught it. It's just that Ray Minkai was still unable to guess Leonard's intentions at the moment. In the current situation, relying on the strong defense of the radiation light shield, the raging flame demon sword could be said to have blocked all the invisible arrows. No matter which direction Leonard tried to attack from, it would all be blocked by the radiation light shield. Of course, this didn't mean that the radiation light shield could achieve a 360-degree perfect all-around defense. But under Rei Minkai's control, it was indeed to this extent, which gave Leonard a headache. Pooh! Puh! Suddenly, the sound of an object breaking through the sound barrier could be heard from the sky. Boom! In the next second, a familiar scene appeared. The same scene before was the scene where the red wildebeest was smashed away by the Shadow Lion's bullet punch. But now, it was the shocking scene where the raging flame demon sword was smashed away by a black shadow and flew straight into the sky. Warning! Warning! Ability to withstand strong impact. It is recommended that you activate the maximum power of your light wings for buffering. Ael's sharp warning continued to ring out. Rei Minkai's hands moved even faster, striving to stabilize the raging inferno demon sword that had been knocked away in a short few seconds. However, reality would not be so smooth. Just as the raging flame demon sword was about to stabilize its balance, the black shadow had already rushed in front of the raging flame demon sword. Shwa! Shwa! Two streaks of cold light slashed down in a crisscrossed manner, ruthlessly striking the radiant light shield of the raging flame's demonic sword. The fallen angel used her palms as knives and slashed at the radiation shield. Moreover, a dazzling brilliance burst out between the fallen angel's hands that could only be produced when the power of the Lambda drive system was fully activated. In the midst of this increasingly frightening radiance, the energy scale of the radiation shield frantically dropped. Woo 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 woo. In an instant, the cockpit of the Inferno Demon sword was filled with ear-piercing alarms. Warning! Warning! The energy of the radiation shield dropped rapidly. There are 10 seconds left before the energy of the radiation shield is exhausted. Ael's warning rang in Rei Minkai's ears again and again, but Rei Minkai remained unmoved. 3, 2, 1. Finally, in the midst of Ael's sharp countdown, the energy of the radiation shield was exhausted. The dazzling red light on the screen flashed crazily, and the raging flame demon sword lost the radiation shield that had been protecting it from the destructive power of the invisible arrows. At the same time, it exposed itself to the fallen angel's sharp attack that turned her palms into knives. Buzz! Rei Minkai did not retreat, but pushed his hands slightly. The moment the fallen angel's attack landed on his shoulders, his hands holding the raging flame magic sword blocked the fallen angel's attack. Moreover, when the raging flame demon sword's hands touched the fallen angel's palms, the same brilliance emitted by the Lambda drive system emerged and erupted with a terrifying impact. Boom! A thunderous roar exploded when the power of the Lambda drive system triggered by the raging flame demon sword and the fallen angel came into contact with each other. The powerful impact that erupted from the power conflict between the Lambda drive system scattered the surrounding clouds, and it also made everyone who was fighting fiercely on Merida Island, as well as Fianna and Mos.Q, who were fighting fiercely on the other side, subconsciously cast their gazes on the two sides that affected the final direction of the battle. The power of the Lambda drive system? I didn't expect you to be able to do it to this extent. I underestimated you, Knight. Reynold was a little shocked. He didn't expect that there would be someone with willpower that could push the power of the Lambda drive system to this extent. The reason why Reynold was able to make the fallen angel fly was not only because of the potential of the Lambda drive system itself, but also because of Reynold's willpower, and even his spirit. It was indeed terrifying to an astonishing extent. God knows how dark Reynold's heart was after experiencing more years and more joys and sorrows than the original Reynold. However, as Reynold's enemy at this time, Rei Minkai's willpower and spirit were actually on par with Reynold's, and even faintly superior to Reynold's in some aspects. How could this not surprise Reynold? The willpower of Rei Minkai and Reynold used the power of the Lambda drive system as a battlefield and constantly fought each other, crazily attacking each other. The dazzling and extremely terrifying light burst out between the raging flame demon's sword and the fallen angel like a newborn sun, making people unable to look directly at the radiance that it emitted. Boom! Suddenly, the terrifying light expanded and retracted, and there was a thunderous roar again, making everyone almost cover their ears. At the same time, the raging flame demon's sword and the fallen angel also flew backward in the opposite direction under this thunderous roar. It was not until the two sides were hundreds of meters away that they barely stopped and confronted each other again. Reynolds' eyes were fixed on the raging flame demon's sword. His lips moved, but he did not say anything. From the battle just now, Reynolds knew that his plan to recruit Ray Minkai could already be classified as bankruptcy. How could a person with that kind of dazzling light be an ally standing by his side? Ridiculous! Ridiculous! A mocking smile appeared on the corner of Reynolds' mouth, and then he slowly said a sentence. As expected of a knight. Suddenly, before Reynolds' voice fell, the fallen angel once again turned into a black stream of light and rushed towards the raging flame demon sword. Facing the fallen angel's decisive attack, Ray Minkai's expression was calm. He held the joystick tightly and moved the raging flame demon sword to step forward. He lowered his waist and withdrew his fist. Then, the moment the fallen angel rushed in front of him, at the same time that his cold eyes flashed, the raging flame demon's sword suddenly punched out. He faced the fallen angel's attack with an upright and fearless posture. At this moment, time seemed to have stopped. The fallen angel's sharp palms were as terrifying as sharp swords, as if they could cut through everything in the world and tear apart the enemies in front of them. However, in front of this unparalleled sharp blade, there was the simple and unadorned punch of the raging flame demon sword. It was plain and simple, but it was impossible to avoid. It was as long as he threw out this punch, the sky would fall and the earth would crack. Bang! Flames. White flames rose. It was a visual effect formed by the activation of the power of the Lambda drive system. In Reynolds' eyes, the moment the right fist of the raging flame demon sword was covered by this white flame, a chill from the bottom of his heart suddenly rose, crazily attacking Reynolds' spirit. Die! Die! Facing this chill that almost crushed his spirit, Reynolds suddenly shouted loudly. He shouted with all his might, using all his strength to shout, trying to expel the fear from the bottom of his heart. However, this was only a matter of an instant. No matter how much Reynolds tried to struggle from the chill in his heart, or how much he tried to launch a desperate counterattack, time would not leave him with even a trace of a chance. Because the palms of the fallen angel had already collided head-on with the straight fist of the raging flame demon sword. Boom! Thunder tore through the sky and interrupted the battle on Merida Island once again. When everyone looked up, they saw a black meteor streaking across the sky and crashing straight into a small mountain south of Merida Island. In the billowing dust, Sabina, who was closest to this small mountain, saw a scene that she could not accept. Among the rolling sand and stones, that familiar paint, that familiar body, and that familiar big bow. There was no doubt that it was the person she admired the most, and also the person she secretly loved, the fallen angel driven by Reynolds. Sir Reynolds! At this moment, no matter how cold and cruel a female warrior Sabina was, she could not help but be ruled by the emotions in her heart. She frantically drove her beloved machine toward the small mountain where the fallen angel had fallen. Sabina? Wait. Li Fule, who was not far away, was also very surprised when he saw the fallen angel fall, but he did not panic like Sabina. However, Sabina, who only acted on impulse in her heart, started to give Li Fule a headache. Casper, how's the situation on your side? Can you support Sabina? Sir Reynolds' fallen angel is almost suppressed by the enemy. Li Fule's request for help was destined to not receive a reply. Because Casper had no time to care about anything else now. Bang! In the dense forest, a cannonball suddenly shot from an imperceptible angle, forcing Casper to rush out of his hiding place. At the same time, it also made him give up on answering Li Fule. Yo! Who is this? Let me guess. Is the one chasing after me now the cute Wilba? After Casper's King of Hell jumped onto a huge rock protruding from the ground, Casper also tried to spy on whether the sniper was Cruz Wilba or not through the international public channel. The student who had once been taught by him. Hey! I was wondering who it was. So it's you. Casper. Why, you haven't been killed on the battlefield yet. In the end, Casper's spying still received a reply from Cruz. Regardless of whether it was Casper's teachings that led to Cruz's current achievements, Cruz still did not agree with Casper's actions. Even Cruz, who was determined to take revenge back then, could not agree with Casper, who did not hesitate to sacrifice innocent lives in order to achieve his goal. I haven't seen you in so many years. Wilba, you're still so naive. Casper chuckled and said, You're right. Forget it. Since that's the case, let me teach you one last lesson. Oh? Is that so? Then let me wait and see. Cruz was not to be outdone and retorted Casper's words. But before that, you'd better take a look at your big boss. I'm afraid, if you're a few minutes late, your big boss will be finished. What? Casper heard and looked back. Above the sky, a pair of wings of light stretched out wantonly, and the silver-white body at this moment was as holy as an angel descending to the mortal world. And the fallen angel, who smashed a big hole in the mountain, seemed to have lost all reaction at this moment, like a demon with sins waiting to be judged by the heavens, powerless and sinful. No. Although he didn't know why Casper was loyal to Reynold, when he saw that Reynold was about to fall under the flame demon sword, he immediately took what he felt was the most correct approach. However, before his King of Hell raised the sniper rifle in his hand and fired even a bullet at the flame demon sword, a gunshot sounded first. Bang! A deep hole appeared at the feet of the King of Hell. The gravel that was blown away sputtered on the armor of the King of Hell, making a series of ear-piercing sounds. Wilba! The ear-piercing sound caused by the gravel made Casper furious. Just now, if he had fired that shot, it would have been as simple as creating a deep hole at the feet of the King of Hell. Instead, he would have been able to take advantage of the enemy's distraction to kill the enemy in one shot. However, Wilba wasted this rare opportunity on such a meaningless thing. This was undoubtedly a humiliation to Casper. Still want to say that I'm naive? If that's the case, then come on. Casper, let me see the last lesson you said. After Kurlut's gaze stopped on the flame demon sword, he once again looked at the King of Hell, whose aura suddenly soared by 3 points. Die. Wilba! In the dense forest, gunshots that belonged to the battle between the strongest snipers sounded again. Above the dense forest, Raiminkai's gaze also fell on the King of Hell, who happened to appear in front of the fallen angel and protected the fallen angel with his own body. The identity of the pilot driving the King of Hell was not difficult to guess. In the amalgam, there was only one person who could do such a thing, a woman. Sabina Lafonio? It seems that today I'm afraid I have to be a ruthless villain. Chapter 427. Behind her was the fallen angel who could not respond to the call of the outside world. In front of her was the roaring flame demon sword that shot down the fallen angel and was suspended in midair. Sabina didn't know Reynolds' current situation, but she knew that she must stop the next move of the roaring flame demon sword in time. As an electronic warfare expert, the first thing Sabina did was to use her best skill. While Sabina's gaze was fixed on the roaring flame demon sword, she quickly activated the electronic warfare function of her beloved machine. Although during the activation of the electronic warfare function, it would have some impact on the performance of the machine, but Sabina couldn't care less now. Even if this electronic warfare function might not have any impact on the roaring flame demon sword at all, Sabina had to seize every opportunity to fight for a chance to get Leonard back on his feet. Warning! Unknown signal interference detected. The radar locking system of this machine may be affected. Al immediately noticed Sabina's actions. Eliminate. Ray Minkai didn't even think about it before he gave the order. Understood. Begin elimination. Al's actions didn't require Ray Minkai's monitoring. On the contrary, Ray Minkai was very assured of Al's safety. After a simple order, he immediately began his own actions. Ray Minkai moved his hands and raised the roaring flame demon sword with both hands. Two black shadows suddenly broke through the air and attacked. The sound of tearing through the air was heard in an instant. However, Sabina didn't drive her beloved machine to escape from the attack path of the black shadows. Instead, she stood in place and used the Lambda Drive System's screen to firmly block the two attacking black shadows in front of her. Hook Claw. The attack of the black shadow was stopped, and Sabina saw the true body of the black shadow. Just this? Just this thing can make the fallen angel fall? Are you kidding me? The next second, a flame uncontrollably rose in Sabina's heart. In the blink of an eye, the two hooks launched by the roaring flame demon sword were bounced back by the screen that suddenly exploded with power. Get out of the way, Sabina! At this moment, Sabina, who planned to continue to defend in front of the fallen angel, suddenly heard the voice she expected. Sir Reynold, are you okay? Sabina's eyes flashed with pleasant surprise as she hurriedly asked. Probably. Leonard shook his head slightly with a self-mocking smile on his face. If the Lambda Drive System had not sensed the strong desire for help in Leonard's heart when the fallen angel was shot down and generated enough power to protect Leonard, Leonard would have fallen from a height of 1,000 meters and turned into a bloody mess. That wasn't something that was impossible. In the original timeline, because of the protection of the Lambda Drive System, the 9 dragons survived the self-destruction that was enough to blow up the son of Dan's slave. However, the price they paid was that they were immobile and had to rely on others to take care of them in their daily lives. The fallen angel slowly stood up and came to the King of Hell's side. He raised his hand. He pressed on the shoulder of the King of Hell. Then, he forcefully pulled the King of Hell behind him. Sabina, go and complete your mission. You are no match for him. Leonard raised his gaze and stared at the raging flame demon sword that had retracted its 2 claws and was watching every move on this side. But, after Sabina witnessed the scene of Leonard's fallen angel being shot down, she had already begun to feel emotions that she should not have. Step back, Sabina. Let me deal with it here. Leonard scolded Sabina without allowing her to refuse. Sabina's expression changed several times, but in the end, she chose to do as usual. I didn't expect you to be so protective of the fairer sex, Leonard. Looking at the King of Hell who gradually retreated and finally disappeared at the foot of the mountain, Ray Minkai was very surprised. I've always been like this, Knight. If possible, I won't do anything out of line to women. When ripples appeared under the feet of the fallen angel again, it was the moment when it confronted the raging flame demon sword in midair. Just now I was careless. The same thing won't happen again. Leonard seemed to have calmed down. Oh, is that so? Then, let's begin. This time, it was the raging flame demon sword that attacked first. With a flash of light wings, the raging flame demon sword rushed in front of the fallen angel and slashed down. Bang! A blood-red light flashed, and the blade of the raging flame demon sword was caught in the fallen angel's hand. I said, the same thing won't happen again. Leonard looked coldly at the raging flame demon sword on the screen and focused his mind. A powerful impact suddenly formed in the fallen angel's hand, and in a barbaric manner, the raging flame demon sword's blade was retracted. At the same time, the fallen angel's palm was like a sword, and it stabbed toward the torso of the raging flame demon sword. Buzz. This time, what blocked the fallen angel's attack was not the radiation light shield, but the screen formed by the Lambda Drive System. Seeing the screen flickering with white light, Leonard's eyes flashed with a glimmer of understanding. It seems that the energy shield you rely on is gone. The fallen angel's palm slowly pushed forward, narrowing the distance between it and the torso of the raging flame demon sword. As long as it advanced a little more, the fallen angel's palm would pierce through the torso of the raging flame demon's sword without any hindrance. So what? The raging flame demon's sword doesn't only have the radiation light shield. Rei Minkai's eyes focused, and the same scene played out again. A powerful impact suddenly formed and bounced the fallen angel's palm away, just like how Leonard bounced the blade of the raging flame demon sword away. Seeing this, Leonard only snorted coldly. The fallen angel's palm was like a sword, and like a storm, it stabbed toward the torso, shoulders, waist, and even the head of the raging flame demon sword. In the face of such a violent attack, Rei Minkai calmly responded. Relying on the powerful performance brought by the electromagnetic muscle bundle, Rei Minkai did not have to think much when facing the fallen angel's violent attack. Instead, he responded to the fallen angel's attack one by one according to his own fighting instincts. Bang! 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 The roar of the battle between the steel fist and the iron arm became the music between the fallen angel and the raging flame demon sword. Leonard, Rei Minkai, at this moment, he treated his beloved machine as an extension of himself and instinctively released all the fighting skills that he had accumulated over a long period of time. This was not a simple collision of steel. This was not a simple decisive battle based on technology. Instead, it was a battle determined by the fighting will that erupted from the two sides with the intention to completely defeat the other party. Every time the world was reset, Leonard would grow and accumulate. Therefore, in the long years of reset, Leonard's accumulation was terrifying and terrifying. As long as he ascended to the fallen angel, it meant that he would transform into an invincible god. This point, every success of resetting the world was an unquestionable proof. However, in the face of this terrifying accumulation, Leonard realized that he seemed to have encountered an even more terrifying enemy when he was serious. The fallen angel's speed was very fast, so fast that even he felt that he had reached his limit. However, the raging flame demon sword, as his opponent, had yet to see its limit. Fast. Fast. It could still be faster. The fallen angel's fists and mobility had already reached their limit. However, the fists of the raging flame demon sword could still be a little faster, until Leonard was shocked to discover this. How is this possible? My accumulation, my long years of accumulation, actually failed? In the midst of the fierce battle, the fallen angel suddenly took a step back and quickly raised his right palm. A trace of light suddenly lit up. Immediately after, before the raging flame demon sword could react, the fallen angel's right palm suddenly flashed with light. Boom! The terrifying physical impact was like a gale passing through. While blowing away the surrounding fog, it also blew away the gravel, fallen leaves, and broken branches below. It turned the space between the fallen angel and the raging flame demon sword into a terrifying scene formed by a hurricane, and the raging flame demon sword, which had no time to react, was sucked into it. The momentum of this attack was quite terrifying. However, Leonard did not place his hopes of defeating Rei Minkai in it. His choice was still the big bow that the fallen angel possessed. Only the invisible arrow that was impossible to guard against could defeat the raging flame demon sword. This was Leonard's clear understanding and his persistence. The storm caused by the fallen angel became more and more intense. At this moment, both sides lost sight of each other. This was an opportunity. The fallen angel's figure flashed and flew hundreds of meters away. At the same time, the big bow returned to the fallen angel's right hand. The big bow was unfolded. He raised his left hand. He pulled the bow to a full moon. He calmed himself down. This attack. Leonard channeled all the strength he could gather into it. This attack. He had to get rid of the raging flame demon sword. In the storm, there was a sudden fluctuation. It was the fluctuation of power from the lambda drive system. This seemed to be a signal that allowed Leonard, who had gathered all the strength in his body, to shoot out an unprecedented attack. Bang! At the same time, the sound of a bowstring that should have existed but did not exist sounded in Leonard's heart. The arrow that Leonard could gather all the strength he could gather flew through the air and pierced into the depths of the storm. In the blink of an eye, the invisible arrow disappeared into the depths of the storm. Then, boom! An explosion that was huge enough to dissipate the storm rang out. It succeeded? The moment this thought appeared in Leonard's mind, the fallen angel suddenly dodged to the right, narrowly avoiding an attack that had no warning. Leonard took a closer look. It was the raging flame demon sword. It's actually fine. Leonard's expression was one of astonishment. He didn't expect that the raging flame demon sword would be fine under his attack. No. When the fallen angel's figure completely stabilized, Leonard finally saw that there were indeed some changes on the raging flame demon sword. A crack appeared on the shoulder of the lion head, and part of its edge was shattered. This was the result of Leonard's full-strength attack just now. Leonard. That attack just now was very exciting. However, with just this kind of attack, it's impossible to hurt the raging flame demon sword. When the raging flame demon sword attacked again, Ray Minkai's praise for Leonard's attack just now sounded in the channel. Leonard gritted his teeth, and a trace of anger appeared in the depths of his eyes. Just this kind of attack? What kind of joke is this? The fallen angel flew up and kicked the raging flame demon sword back. He raised his bow again and shot at the raging flame demon sword. Buzz! A trace of killing intent flashed in the air. It was an invisible arrow. However, the raging flame demon sword had neutralized the fallen angel's attack. It's useless. Leonard. I've already seen through your attack. Ray Minkai's voice was filled with confidence. Up until now, although Leonard hadn't used the big bow many times, it was enough for Ray Minkai to see some clues. Moreover, even if Ray Minkai couldn't see through the flaw of the invisible arrow in time, the White Cat State Zero, who had been in the cockpit of the raging flame demon sword, acting as an onlooker, would be able to seize the key opportunity in time. Now, the fallen angel's trump card had failed. Leonard's eyelids twitched a few times and his lips trembled, but he couldn't say anything. The fallen angel's strongest combat power was the invisible arrow. Leonard was well aware of the consequences of such an important weapon being seen through. He didn't need anyone to remind him. But what could he do? Retreat? That was impossible. Leonard wouldn't allow himself to make such a cowardly move. Absolutely not. Therefore, fight. After the trump card was abolished, Leonard's choice was still to fight. The fallen angel raised his hand, and the invisible arrow flew out again, breaking through the air and heading straight for the raging flame demon sword. Then, it was once again neutralized by the raging flame demon sword's lambda drive system. Da-da-da-da. At the same time that the arrow was neutralized, the fallen angel's next attack followed. The 40mm cannon on the fallen angel's left wrist kept roaring, shooting shells at the raging flame demon sword. It wasn't to cause damage to the raging flame demon sword. It was to restrain the raging flame demon sword's movements. In the roar of the cannon fire, the fallen angel was able to rush to the back of the raging flame demon sword. Get down! One kick. The fallen angel finally gathered the raging flame demon sword. That kick hit the back of the raging flame demon sword, and it erupted with a powerful force that was enough to make the raging flame demon sword fall from the sky. In one breath, the raging flame demon sword was kicked down. It was like a meteor in broad daylight. The treatment that the fallen angel had suffered before was repeated at this moment. However, the meteor-like figure in broad daylight had just streaked across the sky when it suddenly stopped and steadily stopped in midair. There was no trace of the miserable state of being kicked away by the fallen angel's full strength. Wonderful, Leonard. But I've already said that the raging flame demon sword won't be defeated by such a simple attack. The wings of light disappeared, but the raging flame demon sword was still in midair. Ripples appeared under its feet. The fallen angel has it, but so does the raging flame demon sword. The raging flame demon sword has it, but the fallen angel doesn't. Leonard, what you're fighting against is a combination of the power of two worlds. Have you prepared yourself for failure? Chapter 428. Two red flashes of light streaked across the sky, leaving a trail of movement that was too much for the eye to take in. It also left a flash of light in the sky. So fast. This word appeared in both Fianna and Miss Q's minds at the same time. As one of the few female pilots who participated in both sides subconsciously became competitive. Especially when both sides knew that the other was not a native of this world, they instinctively pushed the thought of killing each other to the peak. However, as the battle became more and more intense, Miss Q, who should have been fully focused on the battle, was distracted. Reynold? Miss Q was surprised to find that Reynold, who should be able to compete with Ray Minkai in her prediction, was actually suppressed by the other party. However, her surprise did not last long, because Miss Q herself knew and carried out the reason to the end. There was no other reason. This was the difference between a native body and a fusion body. A native body, as the name implied, was a native body created using the technology that could be possessed by the native people of this world. As for a fusion body, it was a body created by the fusion of the technology essence of various worlds. Often, the body that was born from the fusion could have twice or even more combat power than the body of the native world. Some outstanding fusion bodies could even explode with combat power that exceeded the default rules of the former under certain conditions. They actually created a fusion body in such a short period of time? The reason why Reynold was suppressed had been found in an instant, but it did not mean that Miss Q could provide support to Reynold in time. This was because Miss Q herself was facing an opponent who also used a fusion body, Fianna. The Shadow Lion. This was a native body that had the same technical route as Ray Minkai's Flame Demon sword from the beginning, but it had a different design concept. It was a body that did not use any technology other than the Lu Lucia world. After Mira joined and began to support the research and development of the Flame Demon sword, Royd began to carry out some kind of new technology fusion experiment. A Lionheart Knight command model that used electromagnetic muscle bundles and some performance adjustments. It did not install the same or similar AI program as AL. It used the auxiliary brain provided by Titania as the main body, and developed a new type of lambda drive system after the auxiliary program was developed. That was the Shadow Lion that Miss Q saw and encountered now. Under Fianna's control, this new type of lambda drive system with the auxiliary brain as the main body did not exert the destructive power that Royd had expected. Instead, it displayed unusual performance. Accelerate. Fianna didn't treat the lambda drive system as a weapon. Instead, she treated it as a device that could allow the instantaneous acceleration of the Shadow Lion to exceed its limit. In just a short second, the combination of Fianna and the new lambda drive system allowed the Shadow Lion to be 3 times faster than the Raging Flame Demon sword. This 30% speed didn't seem like much, but when Miss Q was facing the Shadow Lion, it was extremely stressful. If he was not careful, Fianna would seize the opportunity to launch a fatal attack. This is not. The moment Miss Q was distracted by the scene of Ray Minkai suppressing Reynold, Fianna, who had been waiting for the opportunity for a long time, immediately attacked. The hook claw broke through the air, but it was blocked by the red wildebeest that returned to defend in time. It waved its left arm and forcibly sent it flying with the hard arm armor. But this was not Fianna's purpose. The moment the hook claw was sent flying, the shadow lion had already rushed to the front of the red wildebeest. It raised its left hand, and the rapid-fire cannon hidden in its wrist suddenly roared. Boom! Boom! Whistling shells rushed out of the cannon barrel and continuously bombarded the red wildebeest at close range. The roaring explosion, the dazzling fire. In the blink of an eye, it had already engulfed the red wildebeest and the shadow lion. However, there was a different kind of light in the midst of the blazing flames that exploded one after another. The appearance of this light had already dispersed the blazing light that engulfed the red wildebeest and the shadow lion, revealing the two bodies that were protected by the screen. In the shadow lion's almost close-range attack, the red wildebeest's lambda drive system responded in time to Q's desire to survive and prevented it from being hurt. However, when the smoke dispersed, the red wildebeest and the shadow lion began to fight again. Ms. Q knew that her plan to save Reynold had failed. Buzz. The air was filled with killing intent. The red wildebeest and the shadow lion were still fighting. The fallen angel and the raging flame demon sword were still fighting. It was a different body, but it had the same posture. That's right. The raging flame demon sword's current posture made Reynold feel pressured. Before this moment, Reynold probably never thought that the technology that he claimed to be unparalleled in the world would appear in the hands of others. Moreover, it appeared in the hands of his enemy. Now, Reynold knew that the raging flame demon sword's ability to fly was caused by the lambda drive system. In other words, the raging flame demon sword was the same as the fallen angel. They could use the lambda drive system's power to obtain the ability to fly. How? Are you surprised? Reynold. This is the ability of the fallen angel to fly. It feels good. When he heard Ray Minkai's voice, Reynold's face slightly changed. But he didn't respond. He just controlled the fallen angel to raise the big bow in his hand and shot an arrow at the raging flame demon sword. Facing the fallen angel's attack, the raging flame demon sword's body swayed and easily dodged the invisible arrow. After the invisible arrow was seen through, its strangeness and powerful threat no longer existed. From the looks of it, the invisible arrow was nothing more than an ordinary attack. One arrow, two arrows, even if the raging flame demon sword could easily dodge the fallen angel's attack, Reynold was still attacking. When the raging flame demon sword once again rushed in front of the fallen angel, Reynold put away the big bow in his hand and swung a pair of iron fists at the raging flame demon sword. Everything seemed to have returned to the scene where the raging flame demon sword and the fallen angel's fists collided. However, Reynold knew that if this continued, the one who would lose would be him. Are you ready to lose? No. When Ray Minkai's joking voice sounded in his mind, Reynold's heart suddenly let out an unwilling roar. Reynold, who had lived for a long time, would never allow himself to be defeated like this. However, a sense of powerlessness quietly emerged from Reynold's heart. The enemy was too strong. He was so strong that it was as if his attitude of having everything under his control from the beginning was a joke. The fallen angel's attack continued to strengthen, but the sense of powerlessness in Reynold's heart also deepened. Can't find it, can't think of it. Reynold, who had exhausted all means, found that his biggest trump card was at most to destroy the radiation shield of the raging flame demon sword. As for the rest, Reynold couldn't think of any way to break the situation. Buzz! A red light flashed. Reynold subconsciously controlled the fallen angel to raise its left arm, but he heard the sound of armor being cut open. Leonard instinctively took a look. The fallen angel's left arm was cut off. Moreover, the fallen angel's lambda drive system didn't respond. How is this possible? Reynold didn't have time to figure out what was going on. He only knew that he had to immediately increase the distance between the fallen angel and the raging flame demon sword. Just as the red light was about to strike down again, the fallen angel raised its right hand, and the large-caliber machine gun installed on it suddenly madly shot at the raging flame demon sword. As the cannonballs roared, the red light suddenly stopped. At the same time, the raging flame demon sword that was chasing after the fallen angel also quickly retreated, avoiding the fallen angel's desperate attack that was close to exchanging injury for injury. Phew, looking at the raging flame demon's sword that had increased the distance between them, Reynolds slowly exhaled, trying to regain his calmness. However, Ray Minkai wasn't the kind of person who would only blabber and wait for the enemy to recover before performing a desperate counterattack. Moreover, Ray Minkai wasn't the villain in this kind of story. The real villain should be Reynolds. Let's stop here, Reynolds. The raging flame demon's sword waved with both hands, and the pair of radiation vibration swords instantly increased the output power to the limit. At this moment, the scarlet-red blade seemed to be able to drip with traces of blood. It was so terrifying that it seemed as if it could bleed. Then, the moment the ripples under the raging flame demon sword's feet spread out, the pressure that the fallen angel faced suddenly increased exponentially. The light of the Lambda drive system crazily burst out in the void. Every time the raging flame demon sword waved, the screen on the fallen angel's body dimmed a bit. Swing, block, swing, block. At this moment, the offensive and defensive sides had been reversed. The fallen angel, who was undoubtedly an invincible existence in the eyes of Sabina, Li Fule, and the others, was actually forced into a corner by the raging flame demon's sword like a weakling without any resistance. In less than a few minutes, the fallen angel was forced from mid-air to the forest below by the raging flame demon's sword. She could only rely on the complicated rainforest environment to try to regain the initiative of the battle. It's not over yet. The moment the fallen angel dodged the raging flame demon's sword, she quickly raised her bow and shot again. Only this time, the target of the arrow was not the raging flame demon's sword, but the dense forest below the fallen angel's feet. Boom! The strong physical impact set off a violent explosion in the forest below the fallen angel's feet in an instant. The broken leaves and branches that had been decaying for many years were mixed in the flying soil, and the fallen angel's figure was completely covered. Shashasha! The sound of the soil mixed with broken leaves and branches falling on the armor of the raging flame demon's sword could be heard continuously. Ow! Target's whereabouts. Ray Minkai's gaze moved left and right on the screen, and his mind was highly focused and alert. Unable to confirm the target's existence, Ael's answer made Ray Minkai subconsciously look to his right. Since Ael, who was in charge of the radar, could not find it, then it was time to let the biological radar, White Cat State Zero, appear. The White Cat State Zero, who had been watching the show for a long time, raised its head slightly and looked towards the southwest direction, then raised its paw and waved in that direction. It's over there. After the White Cat State Zero lazily yawned, it lay down and continued to watch the show. Seeing this, Ray Minkai just raised his eyebrows and did not say anything. The bitter and vengeful look from before was a world of difference from the salted fish look now. As the light wings stretched out again, the raging flame demon's sword rushed into the rainforest, following the guidance of the White Cat State Zero all the way. Don't even think about escaping, Reynolds. In the rainforest, under Reynolds' orders, Sabina, who continued to carry out the mission according to the plan, also encountered a crisis. I didn't expect the 9 Dragons lackey to appear in front of me as a mithril. Sabina's gaze was extremely cold. Because the person in front of her was not a stranger. It was the Gemini, Xia Yufeng, Xia Yulan, who had interacted with her several times in the amalgam. We are not Mithril's people. In front of Sabina's King of Hell, there were 2 mecha with the same lavender paint, but there was a violet and an orchid on the left shoulder respectively, the Lionheart Knight. The Lionheart Knight with the violet pattern on the left shoulder was the mecha piloted by Xia Yufeng. The Lionheart Knight with the orchid pattern was the mecha piloted by Xia Yulan. This was a suggestion that Euphemia casually suggested when she wanted to distinguish the mecha piloted by the Gemini. In the end, the Gemini carried it out to the end with their extremely high mobility. Not Mithril's people? Aren't you still a lackey? Sabina sneered a few times. At the same time, she launched an attack with lightning speed. With a raise of her right hand, the machine gun that Sabina's King of Hell had never used was suddenly held in her hand. She aimed at the Lionheart Knight with the violet pattern on the left shoulder and launched a series of attacks. Sabina knew very well that among the Gemini, only Xia Yufang had always been the AS pilot. When it was not necessary, Xia Yulan, as one of the Gemini, would more often than not carry out solo missions. Therefore, among the Gemini, it was obvious who had better AS piloting skills. We must get rid of Xia Yufang first. Driven by this thought, Sabina decided to temporarily ignore Xia Yulan's actions and strive to get rid of Xia Yufang's mecha in the shortest time possible. However, what Sabina could think of, 9 dragons, who trained the Gemini back then, had already thought of it. Moreover, this was what the Gemini wanted. After the Gemini changed their identities and voluntarily became Rei Minkai's subordinates, they had already anticipated that they would encounter the amalgam. At that time, those who were familiar with the Gemini's combat style would definitely become the Gemini's enemy. Therefore, a trap that was not really a trap was set up. The King of Hell's attack quickly pressed down on the violet Lionheart Knight. However, Xia Yufang did not panic at all. This was because she knew that Xia Yulan's support would definitely arrive in time. The violet Lionheart Knight raised her right hand and the radiation light shield on her right arm suddenly opened. Bang! The rain of bullets shot by the King of Hell madly hit the radiation light shield, setting off bursts of jumping sparks. Then, the King of Hell's long sword followed closely behind and slashed the radiation light shield fiercely. However, it was unable to cause any effective damage. In the next moment, Xia Yulan's Lionheart Knight appeared behind the King of Hell like a shadow. Just like how the King of Hell swung his sword at the violet Lionheart Knight, she swung her sword straight at the King of Hell's back. At this moment, Sabina was in a precarious situation. At this moment of extreme danger, a cold killing intent suddenly enveloped Xia Yulan, enveloping her within. Under the instinct to survive, Xia Yulan immediately gave up on pursuing the King of Hell and adopted the strategy of escaping from the murderous intent. Buzz! Boom! The moment Xia Yulan's Orchid Lionheart Knight escaped from the murderous intent, her shoulder armor was shattered by an unknown force. She narrowly walked between life and death. Who is it? The Gemini immediately gave up on attacking Sabina and turned to look in another direction warily. And standing there was a pitch-black airframe. Fallen Angel? Sir Leonard? The appearance of the fallen angel shocked Sabina. Needless to say, Sabina almost subconsciously thought that the appearance of the fallen angel at this moment represented the arrival of victory. However, the fallen angel standing on the huge rock that protruded from the ground quickly jumped and landed in front of Sabina's King of Hell. Sabina! Focus, this battle is not over yet. Before Leonard's voice fell, the figure of the pursuer appeared in the sky above the forest. It was the fiery demon sword. Chapter 429. Violet and Yulan, the 2 Lionheart Knights, slowly rose into the air under the wings of light. They converged with the roaring flame demon sword that arrived later, and looked down at the fallen angel and the King of Hell below. 2 more. Leonard looked at the 2 silver Lionheart Knights that were flying slightly lower than the roaring flame demon sword, and a trace of uneasiness flashed in his eyes. The roaring flame demon sword was already difficult to deal with. Not to mention that there were 2 other Lionheart Knights that also had the ability to fly. Moreover, from Sabina, Leonard learned that the 2 silver airframes with violet and orchid patterns painted on the shoulders were piloted by the Gemini taught by the 9 dragons. After the death of the old master, the new master's lackey? Just as the arc of ridicule rose, Leonard couldn't laugh. because an explosion came from the other side. At the same time, in the violent explosion, mud splashed across the sky and scattered messily on the open space between the roaring flame demon sword and the fallen angel. Hum! Immediately after, a series of mechanical roars sounded, and the black shadow that rushed out of the scattered soil fell heavily on the open space. At this moment, whether it was the roaring flame demon sword or the fallen angel, they all raised the weapons in their hands, ready to launch a counterattack the moment the other party launched an attack. However, when the mud fell, the roaring flame demon sword raised its right hand, indicating the two Lionheart knights, Violet and Yulon, to stop attacking. The fallen angel did the same thing. There was no other reason. Both sides recognized the true body of the black shadow that had suddenly appeared between them. It was the purple-red King of Hell with a sniper rifle in its hand. Although the purple King of Hell had lost its left arm, it still wielded a sniper rifle in its right hand. It was still a weapon of mass destruction. "Casper, you're still alive?" Leonard's voice sounded on the communication channel, but his eyes were always on the roaring flame demon sword. "Hey. Good. Sir Leonard." Although the damage on the body was very serious, from the sound of it, Casper's condition seemed to be fine. "How rude. Casper." Sabina sighed. "Not bad. After all, the students I've taught have become successful." The purplish-red Lord of Hell quickly stood up and returned to the side of the fallen angel and the white Lord of Hell that Sabina was driving. "Yo. It's very lively here. Can I get a share too?" The student Casper spoke of was undoubtedly Cruz Wilba. When Casper returned to Reynold and Sabina's side, Cruz appeared on the other side. He did not care about the sniper's combat principles at all. "Cruz? Looks like your results are pretty good." Ray Minkai was not surprised by the appearance of Casper and Cruz. On the contrary, he was looking forward to the decisive battle between this pair, who clearly distinguished their gratitude and grudges. After all, in this world, Cruz Wilba had done what the original Cruz Wilba couldn't do. Driving an AS equipped with a Lambda drive system was one of these changes in the future. Among them, Cruz drove the new Lambda drive system version of the M9 and brutally defeated Casper's Lord of Hell. Judging from the injuries on the purplish-red Lord of Hell, this pair of former master and disciple did indeed have a battle to the death. Moreover, Cruz had also steadily crushed Casper. "No way. I'm still far from Casper's realm," Cruz said modestly, but in his eyes there was a trace of pride. Being able to suppress his former teacher, Wilhelm Casper, who was known as the world's best sniper, was indeed the most satisfying and the proudest thing in Cruz's life. "Hey, you're just a kid who got a new toy. You're still far away. Wilba." As if he felt Cruz's pride, Casper, who met up with Reynold, refuted Cruz without showing any weakness. "Really? Then, let's do it again." Cruz unceremoniously provoked Casper. However, before the two sides could move again, another black shadow flew out of the woods and blocked the open space where the purplish-red Lord of Hell had fallen. "Le Foulet?" There was no need to guess. When Reynold and the others saw the colorful light mixed with the black shadow, they immediately recognized the true body of the black shadow, the Lord of Hell driven by Le Foulet. Unexpectedly, in the ensuing changes, the Lord of Hell on Reynold's side was forced to one place from all over Merida Island one after another. "Now everyone is finally here." The roaring flame demonic sword flew high and looked down at Reynold and the others who were surrounded by the M9 and the Lionheart Knight driven by the Gemini who came out of the woods one after another. This was the strategy that Lei Minkai and Teresa had come up with. Instead of letting Reynold and the others wander around and wreak havoc after landing, it was better to use Avalon's powerful anti-air ability from the beginning to force Reynolds' side to land in the pre-designated landing area. Then, it would be the method of a pack of wolves driving a flock of sheep. They would force Reynolds' side as far as possible so that they could appear together at the end to avoid future trouble. Boom! Boom! As more and more M9 and Silver Lionheart Knight appeared, there were violent explosions on the sea around Merida Island. Looking from afar, there were huge water pillars shooting up into the sky. In the flashes of light that refracted the sunlight, there were scattered parts of the giant beasts that were supposed to surround Merida Island from all directions and provide powerful firepower support for Reynold and the others landing. At this moment, when the water pillars rose, it was the moment these giant beasts were buried in the sea. Sir Reynold, our giant beasts. Sabina looked at the giant beasts' icons on the screen that were all lost, and could not help but panic. We've been tricked. This thought arose in Reynold's mind, but he did not say it out loud. He knew that if he said this thought at this moment, he was afraid that he would fall into a hopeless situation. At that time, even if there was a glimmer of hope to break out of this situation, it would be difficult to reverse the situation. Howl! All of a sudden, when the hole that surrounded Reynold and the others closed slightly, a tearing sound of wind suddenly sounded from the sky, and in the midst of the increasingly harsh sound of the wind, it landed heavily on the open space in front of Reynold and the others. What day is it today? One after another, smashing on the ground here. Let me make it clear in advance, Mithril has no intention of building a house here. Kurlutz looked at the airframes that appeared one after another and couldn't help but whistle. Shut up, idiot. We're still fighting now. Melissa, who had just driven her airframe out of the woods, immediately retorted when she heard Cruz's frivolous words. Miss Q. Ray Minkai did not pay attention to the entanglement of Cruz and Melissa, this pair of enemies. Instead, he raised his head and looked at the sky. The Shadow Lion was slowly descending and landed on the right side of the raging flame demon sword, overlooking the airframe driven by Reynold and the others below. Fortunately, I did not disappoint, sir. Fianna did not say anything superfluous and just nodded faintly. Yes. Very good. Then, Avalon, it's time for you to enter the stage. As soon as Ray Minkai's voice fell, a terrifying throbbing suddenly erupted from the depths of the clouds above the ninth heaven. Miss Q, who was controlling the red wildebeest to stand up and meet up with Reynold and the others, trembled and shouted with a great change in expression. Reynold! Quickly open the screen! Boom! As soon as Miss Q's voice sounded, the terrifying throbbing from the ninth heaven crashed down with a loud bang. It was as dazzling as the Milky Way descending from the ninth heaven, but it was also so fatal. At this moment, the air was scorching hot. It was tearing. It also revealed a chilling aura of death. Rumble, there was an irresistible tremor in the air. No matter who it was, as long as they saw the golden beam of light falling from the ninth heaven, they would subconsciously have the thought of submitting or even dying. Terrifying. Terrifying. Too terrifying. Far away from the front line, Teresa, who had been sitting in the command hall all this time, could feel the terror of the golden beam of light from the screen, from the terrifying tremor that was transmitted all the way to the command hall along the ground. This is the true power of that ship? The golden beam of light pierced through the sky and fell straight on Merida Island, in the area marked out by Ray Minkai and Teresa. The moment the beam of light fell, Ray Minkai, Gemini, Fianna, and even the other Lionheart Knight immediately activated the defense system of their airframe. In an instant, under the golden brilliance, the white light representing the Lambda drive system and the dark green light representing the radiation shield unfolded one after another. Like a rock in the tide, they unwaveringly protected everyone under the terrifying golden brilliance. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The tremor in the air reached its peak in just a few seconds. Above the ninth heaven, there was a roar. Boom. Under the roar, the golden light suddenly skyrocketed, and the open space enveloped by the golden beam of light was suddenly swallowed by a terrifying explosion. At this moment, the violent energy tore the open space and the sky apart. The powerful impact razed the surrounding forest to the ground, and also pushed the soil straight into the rolling waves of the sea. Hoo! Boom! In the last deafening roar, the wind swept across the sky, and the surrounding soil and dust were swept back. Then, the huge pit covered by a layer of hazy sand and dust was revealed, the open space where Reynolds and the others stood before. Did it work? This attack is really powerful. Cruz shook his head and tried to clear his dizzy head. Definitely. Xiangliang Soji's face was not very good. Although he had learned to use the power of the Lambda drive system, the power of the golden beam of light that penetrated the sky was too terrifying. If it weren't for the protection of the Lambda drive system and the radiation shield of the Lionheart Knight, perhaps AS, who was in close range, would have died. No. There are still people. Melissa's bewildered voice rang out. There are still people. People with combat power, be on guard. In the scattered sand, the light wings of the roaring flame demon's sword were like bright lights, guiding the people who had not yet awakened from the impact of the golden beam of light. Rei Minkai's gaze penetrated the billowing sand like a sharp sword and fell on the two bodies that did not fall under the terrifying destructive power of the golden beam of light. Red Wildebeest, Fallen Angel. Sure enough, these two bodies could withstand Avalon's full blow. In this regard, Rei Minkai had already expected it. But judging from the degree of damage to the Red Wildebeest, Rei Minkai's estimation in his heart was a bit conservative. Perhaps, to a large extent, Avalon's full blow was withstood by the Red Wildebeest. As for the fallen angel, the armor on its body was almost broken, revealing the lines that were constantly jumping with sparks. The big bow that was the trump card of the fallen angel was also broken. With its miserable appearance, it could no longer be activated. In addition, around the Red Wildebeest and the fallen angel, there was a pile of debris scattered everywhere. It was so broken that its original form could no longer be seen clearly. There were purple-red, white, and dark purple debris. There was no doubt that the original owners of these debris were Casper, Sabina, and Li Fuel. Leonard's left and right hands turned into wreckage under Avalon's all-out attack, falling into a hell of eternal damnation. Sabina, Li Fuel, Casper. The cockpit of the fallen angel was dim. But Reynolds knew that his men had died. He also knew that he did not die under the golden beam of light because of the Red Wildebeest, Miss Q. Why did you save me? Reynolds asked. I just feel that you and I are the same kind of people. The Red Wildebeest moved slowly and stood in front of the fallen angel, as if it wanted to protect the fallen angel who had lost the ability to fight. Same kind of people? Haha. What a joke. I have lost my value. You go. In the darkness, Reynolds' mocking laughter sounded. At the moment when Avalon's full blow pierced through the sky, Reynolds finally realized that he, who had reset the world countless times and gone through a long period of time, was actually so powerless in the face of a variable from another world. Even with the knowledge and vision that he had accumulated over a long period of time, he could not predict that the floating battleship would have such a terrifying attack method. If the attack just now had directly bombarded the city, perhaps no large city in this world would have been spared from this attack. Da-da-da-da-da. The M9 that still had combat power suddenly launched an attack. It was as if it was beating a dog that had fallen into the water, and also as if it did not want to see the Red Wildebeest and the fallen angel have even a trace of time to recover. The Mithril M9 launched an attack without hesitation. However, the attack that set off a dense rain of bullets in an instant fell into silence the moment the Red Wildebeest burst out a ray of light. Don't even think about escaping. In midair, two rays of cold red light flashed alternately. It was the roaring flame demon's sword that swooped down from the sky the moment the M9 launched the attack, and rushed straight to the top of the Red Wildebeest's head. Too late. A trace of hatred flashed in the eyes of Miss Q. In the next moment, the ray of light that turned the M9's attack into silence was actually retracted by the Red Wildebeest, and then the roaring flame demon sword's blade swung down, wrapping the Red Wildebeest and the fallen angel in it. Buzz! At this moment, the space shook violently, and a terrifying aura and countless lightning bolts jumped out of the space crack on the red wildebeest and the fallen angel's body. "Don't even think about escaping, Miss Q." In the cockpit of the roaring flame demon sword, the white cat State Zero suddenly burst out with a roar. The shadow of a huge lion suddenly appeared outside the body of the roaring flame demon sword, opened its bloody mouth, and fiercely bit the red wildebeest. "Gotcha!" A crisp sound was heard. The red wildebeest lost both of its arms. However, the moment its arms fell into the lion's mouth, it disappeared into the torn void with the fallen angel. Chapter 430. The steel flower slowly hovered in the air. Amidst the overflowing energy lightning, it gradually closed the cannon barrel that had just bombarded Merida Island from top to bottom. In an instant, the steel flower in the sky quietly disappeared, and what reappeared in the sky was the floating battleship, Avalon. The energy circulation circuit is normal. The shooting program self-check is normal. The Utopia system is online again. The propulsion power output is normal. The ecological maintenance system is normal. The entire system self-check has passed. The entire system of Avalon is normal. The final report of passing the final test sounded on the bridge of Avalon. Royd and Cecil finally breathed a sigh of relief. This was a real combat experience. It was also the first time that Avalon's hidden trump card, the Holy Sword Excalibur, participated in the first real battle. However, judging from the results, it seemed that it was not suitable to be used as a good start in the first battle. 3 targets were destroyed and 2 were seriously injured. The energy beam power was lower than expected and did not reach the expected goal. When the new report sounded, Euphemia, who was sitting on the throne, raised her hand slightly, indicating that there was no need to continue the report. Euphemia already knew that the opponent was difficult to deal with. Being able to seriously injure the opponent with one blow was already considered to have achieved the expected goal. As one of the targets that the Space Administration had been pursuing for a long time, Miss Q would not be so easily killed by a battleship built by a human empire that had just stepped into the Starry Sky era from the Earth era. Moreover, when the seriously injured red wildebeest was besieged and was chased by the roaring flame demon sword, it was still able to tear open a space crack with the fallen angel in a seriously injured state and disappear from this world. Euphemia also saw it clearly. Confirm the Avalon system again. Then, contact the Night Captain. Euphemia looked at Cecil, who immediately relayed Euphemia's order. The screen in front of them flashed, and Ray Minkai's avatar appeared on the main screen of the bridge. He saw that Lei Minkai seemed to be fighting with someone, and was using his hands to press something down. A white afterimage quickly swept past the edge of the screen. Seeing this, Euphemia could not help but smile bitterly. Royd and Cecil shook their heads helplessly. There was no other reason. Only the white cat, Type 0, could wantonly mess around in the cockpit of the raging flame demon sword. "Kai, is everyone all right?" Euphemia asked with a serious expression. "Yes. Apart from some damage to the body caused by Excalibur, there are no losses in terms of personnel." Ray Minkai nodded and suddenly shouted. "State 0. You'd better calm down. Who told you to slack off before?" "Roar. It's you. It's all because of you. Who told you to let Miss Q go?" Not to be outdone, a roar followed, and a pair of claws appeared at the edge of the screen, scratching wildly. "You better stop before you go too far. State 0. If you continue to cause trouble, I'll cut off your rations." As soon as these words came out, the noisy cockpit suddenly quieted down. Ray Minkai's right hand pressed down on the white cat, which immediately stopped under the threat of rations. After sighing slightly, he looked at the screen again. "Your Majesty, how's the situation in Avalon? Did Excalibur affect the warship?" Euphemia shook her head slightly. The situation is within expectations. It's just that the energy harvesting has not reached the expected requirement. Otherwise, the Raging Flame Demon Sword and the Lionheart Knight would not be needed to activate the defensive shield. But as far as the current results are concerned, it has already reached expectations. But once again, Miss Q managed to get away. This sentence made Ray Minkai secretly sigh in his heart. He did not expect that after digging such a big hole, Miss Q still could not be left behind. Moreover, the opponent's ability to escape was really impressive. After one attack, she immediately ran away when she saw that something was wrong. This ability really made Ray Minkai admire her very much. Perhaps this was why Miss Q and her gang were still able to roam around while being chased by the Space Administration. Now let's not talk about the future. The only thing left was to clean up the mess in front of them. Avalon slowly descended from the sky. The deep crater that was illuminated by the holy sword Excalibur was deeply engraved on the ground of Merida Island like a glaring scar. Teresa and the others, who had just walked out of the command center, looked at Avalon, who was descending from the sky, with complicated expressions on their faces. Until just now, Teresa had never imagined that there would be such a powerful warship in this world. A warship that could destroy a small to medium-sized city with one attack. No, maybe my estimation was a little conservative. The girl who was called the Mithril, which looked at the figure hovering above the deep hole that was blasted by the powerful weapon called Excalibur with flickering eyes. But in any case, the battle that determined the future of the amalgam and even the future of the world was finally over. Reynolds' side used the opportunity of the commander being seriously injured to leave the space rift and the death of many of his core cadres as an opportunity to be swallowed up by Qian Shanwu, who had been waiting for a long time. Of course, the remnants of Reynolds' forces could not be digested overnight. But under the guarantee of Ray Minkai as the middleman, Qian Shanwu, who successfully got rid of his identity as a substitute and dominated most of the amalgam forces as Mr. AU, reached an agreement with Mallory, who was in charge of Mithril, to clean up and integrate Reynolds' forces together. This may be the first time in my life that I stand in front of the door to realize the long-cherished wish of my parents. In front of the floor-to-ceiling window, Mallory stood there steadily, and the crutch in his hand had disappeared. Beside him was a young man who looked somewhat similar to him but was much younger. He was Mallory's son, the young man who was called Edmund Mallory Jr. However, Mallory Jr. did not seem to be in a good situation. His standing posture seemed to be a bit awkward. No matter how he swayed and tried to adjust his posture, he could not keep his body balanced, as if he was a baby who was still learning to walk. Ha ha! Kid, you still have a long way to go. Seeing his son's strange appearance, Mallory's mood suddenly became better. He laughed, and with a light tap of his feet, his whole body floated up and floated gently in the air. His calm demeanor made little Mallory, who was still struggling with his body's balance, stare blankly. Father! Father! How did you do it? Were you an astronaut in the past? Little Mallory looked in surprise at Mallory, who was so calm and relaxed. Astronaut! A trace of nostalgia flashed in Mallory's eyes, but he still shook his head. No. I didn't participate in the astronaut training. But, just as Mallory Jr. and Mallory Jr. were talking, the surrounding light suddenly dimmed, and then under the gaze of Mallory Jr. and Mallory Jr. a gap quietly opened in the darkness. Immediately after, that trace of ancient light shone in from the gap that was getting bigger and bigger, stealing the sight of Mallory Jr. and Mallory Jr. and Mallory Jr. and Mallory Jr. Only after they had adapted with the help of the filter lens did they realize that the existence that could steal all the light in the world was the ancient existence that humans, and even all the creatures on Earth, relied on for survival, the sun. In front of this light, under the feet of Mallory Jr. and Mallory Jr. a sky-blue planet was slowly rotating. The white clouds, green forests, barren yellow deserts, and the blue ocean that occupied most of the area were clearly presented in front of Mallory Jr. and Mallory Jr. and Mallory Jr. At this moment, the impact on Mallory Jr. and Mallory Jr. was undoubtedly shocking. This is Earth. The young Mallory Jr. looked at the blue planet under his feet with a shocked expression, and an indescribable feeling rose from the depths of his heart, but Mallory Jr. was unable to use words to express his feelings at this moment. At this moment, a familiar voice sounded. "Welcome to Avalon, Sir Mallory and Sir Edmund. Thank you very much, Sir Knight, for giving us the opportunity to overlook Earth from space. This experience is really unforgettable." Old Mallory Jr. reacted very quickly. While Mallory Jr. was still fascinated by the shock of the blue planet, he had already noticed the arrival of Ray Minkai. Indeed, every human born from this blue planet will have a similar feeling when they see the full picture of this planet with their own eyes. This is a reaction that every human will have. Ray Minkai smiled and then said meaningfully, "But, Sir Mallory, this experience may be an unforgettable memory for you, but I believe that in the near future, as long as you are willing, you will be able to see the boundary between day and night in space constantly change on this blue planet." Ray Minkai's words made Mallory Jr. tremble. "Sir Knight, what are you doing?" Ray Minkai smiled slightly and looked back at the blue planet under his feet. "Sir Mallory, do you think that after controlling the amalgam that once caused chaos in the world, this world can steadily move towards peace?" Mallory's expression changed, and then he pondered. After a long time, Mallory shook his head slightly. "I don't know. The collapse of the amalgam over the years made me extremely angry. For this reason, I created Mithril and tried to use a second method to change the amalgam and change the world. But when the plan was pushed forward, the changes in the world were already beyond my control." Mallory clenched his hands slightly and continued, "The amalgam is the source of chaos in the world. But more of it is the hidden conflict of interests that led to war. Then, do you think that with the current power of Mithril, you can suppress these conflicts of interests, or even kill them?" Ray Minkai asked again. "In a short period of time. But the more you suppress it, the more deadly the backlash will be." Mallory did not hesitate and directly stated the concerns in his heart. The corners of Ray Minkai's mouth curled up. "I have an idea here. Since this is a war caused by a conflict of interest, then, in front of the original conflict of interest, put an even bigger cake that has never been touched by anyone before. I believe that no one will refuse this generous gift. A cake that has not been touched by anyone." Mallory's expression changed, and he immediately thought of what the cake Ray Minkai was talking about was. "But we don't have that kind of technology." "We do." Ray Minkai smiled calmly and revealed his trump card. "Space development technology. Although it sounds very attractive, in fact, the technology we have can allow this world to steadily move from the planetary era to the galactic era in just 10 to 20 years. But, before that, you have to pay a price." "A price? Haha. There is no free lunch in this world." "Then, Sir Knight, I understand what you mean very well. If we can make this chaotic world from division to unity, I don't think it's a big deal. Moreover, the emergence of the king of the space era is more important than anything else." Mallory was very smart. When Ray Minkai didn't explicitly state what the so-called price was, Mallory had already completed all the steps in his mind. Although it was a bit exaggerated, the actual situation was similar. Qian Shanwu, who followed Ray Minkai's orders, did not suffer any losses in the Battle of Merida Island. At the same time, he also gained ascension in the incorporation of Reynolds' remaining forces. Therefore, the power that Ray Minkai controlled at this time was already slightly above Mallory's. Under this situation, Mallory decisively made a decision that led to the direction of this world. Of course, the reason why Mallory could make this decision was, to a large extent, the goals and actions that Ray Minkai had been carrying out since he came to this world. Moreover, in the face of the powerful force displayed by Avalon, there was probably no force in this world that could compete with it. Is that so? Then, I will have to ask Sir Mallory for the next step. Ray Minkai's attitude made Mallory stunned. In Mallory's imagination, Ray Minkai, who made this suggestion, was bound to be the leader who led the entire world to unify. But now, it seemed that Ray Minkai wanted to throw this burden away? Sir Mallory, this is sudden, we still have a mission to complete. Although this world has already obtained the dawn of peace, the leaders of the remaining forces are still wandering outside. We have to eliminate them completely. Reynold? Ray Minkai nodded. Yes and no. Reynold is just one of our targets. Our real target is the mastermind behind Reynold. But haven't they already disappeared from this world? Mallory said subconsciously. After the Battle of Merida Island, Mallory had secretly sent people to search for Reynold's whereabouts. But the result was undoubtedly that Reynold no longer existed in this world. Didn't I say it before? Our technology has long surpassed that of this world. What Your Excellency needs to do now is to lead this world towards unification. In this way, a new world will unfold before your eyes. Chapter 431. Avalon. In a special research institute located at the end of the ship, State Zero, who was in the form of a pure white lion, was sitting in front of a huge device that was connected by many wires. Behind State Zero, a technical team led by Mira and Nami was adjusting the frequency of the huge device through the control system. Although this frequency made Mira, Nami, and the others suffer a lot, after seeing the pair of mechanical arms placed in the huge device, everyone involuntarily put all their attention into their work. The pair of mechanical arms were not strange and mysterious items, but the broken arms that were bitten off by State Zero from the red wildebeest in the previous battle. State Zero, who had been brooding over the Miss Q escaping again, finally had an unprecedented burst of motivation. Not only could it provide the location of Miss Q by analyzing the pair of broken arms, but it could also accurately locate the location of Miss Q's frequency analysis technology. Simply put, in order to avenge the humiliation, the White Cat, who had been waiting for death, began to take out its trump card technology. But then again, since there was such technology, why did the White Cat not take it out at the beginning? Roar! This is the technology obtained from the recovered world fragments. Do you think I didn't want to take it out at the beginning? This was the explanation given by the White Cat, State Zero, who had been roaring unwillingly in response to Lei Minkai's doubts. However, the roar did not last long before its mouth was blocked by the cherry stone that Euphemia handed over. Kai, when are we leaving? Euphemia smiled apologetically at the White Cat, who had awkwardly swallowed the cherry stone, and asked Ray Minkai. It depends on when State Zero is done. The general layout here is almost complete. Ray Minkai nodded, and said while thinking about the details of the meeting with Mallory. Well, I've seen the content. But shouldn't we leave some people to watch over it? Euphemia raised a very simple question, but it would have an impact on the future world situation. Probably. However, we don't need to worry about this problem. After all, we still have the Space Administration to rely on. Ray Minkai also had a headache about this problem, but after thinking about the great god behind him, he suddenly felt more relaxed. As an inspector, every world that Lei Minkai had stepped into would be secretly inspected by the Space Administration for a period of time by the inspection fleet sent out by the Space Administration. As long as the world reached a certain standard during the inspection period, it would be included in the list of inspectors who had set foot in the inspection world. In other words, if this process could be completed smoothly, not to mention the all-metal world, even the world where Ray Minkai's Team 08MS was under Ray Minkai's jurisdiction. Euphemia, who was also an inspector, also had the same thought. However, as the Empress of the Empire, it was inevitable that she would think more than Lei Mingkai. You're right. Of course, we don't know when the inspection fleet's inspection. I don't know, of course. However, at least we have a clear goal now. At least we won't be bound by the world in front of us. Euphemia nodded slightly at Rei Minkai's words. Everything depended on whether the analysis technology provided by the White Cat, State Zero, could successfully track the whereabouts of Miss Q. The wait was destined to be long. As this analysis technology was new, the progress of frequency analysis was very slow. Your Majesty, Captain Knight. Captain Teresa of the Sons of Dan Nu requests an audience. While waiting, Rei Minkai and Euphemia received Teresa's request for an audience. What is Captain Teresa doing here? Euphemia looked at Rei Minkai in confusion. Now, Qian Shanwu's amalgam and Mallory's mithril had begun a certain degree of screening and fusion. Those who could meet the requirements would be transferred from their original posts by the two sides on the grounds of confidential orders. They would be gathered on the Sons of Dan Nu within a specified time to accept the new reorganization work and become a member of the new organization that led the world to unify. Therefore, as the captain of the Sons of Dan Nu, one could imagine how terrifying the work pressure Teresa was facing was. However, under such circumstances, Teresa actually ran to Avalon and requested to meet with Euphemia and Rei Minkai. It was no wonder that Euphemia had some doubts. I don't know either. Let's go take a look first. Your Majesty. Thus, Rei Minkai and Euphemia left the laboratory where the pair of severed arms were being analyzed and came to the reception room for foreign guests. Your Majesty Euphemia, Captain Knight, long time no see. How have you been? When Teresa saw Rei Minkai and Euphemia walking into the reception room together, she immediately bowed slightly. Please rise. Teresa, you don't have to be like this. Teresa's posture made Euphemia and Rei Minkai look at each other, and a trace of surprise flashed in their eyes at the same time. Previously, when Teresa learned of Euphemia's identity, she greeted Euphemia with a military salute. Now she was bowing, and the clothes she was wearing were not the captain's mithril uniform at all, but casual clothes. Captain Teresa, what are you doing? Lei Minkai looked at Teresa, who was dressed in casual clothes, with a puzzled expression and asked, No. Captain Knight. Now, I'm no longer the captain of a ship. So, please just call me by my name, Teresa. Unexpectedly, Teresa said this news that surprised Euphemia and Rei Minkai. Not a captain? Teresa, you resigned as the captain of the Sons of Dan Nu? Rei Minkai's voice could not hide the surprise in his voice. Isn't the Sons of Dan Nu the product of your hard work? Teresa's eyes flashed with reluctance, but her expression was firm. Yes. The Sons of Dan Nu is the product of my hard work and also my child. But, no matter how much I love my child, the child will eventually leave my arms one day and become its own sky. So, now I've decided to resign as the captain of the Sons of Dan Nu. So, you're here to say goodbye to us? Euphemia pondered for a moment, as if she thought that Teresa was tired of fighting, so after the war with the Amalgamate, she chose to leave the battlefield and return to the world of ordinary people. Little did she know, Teresa gave another answer. Teresa slowly raised her head, first looking at Rei Minkai, then at Euphemia. The moment their eyes met in midair, she lowered her head again, and then, for the first time, she knelt to Euphemia and begged. There was a sense of determination in her voice. Your Majesty Euphemia Li Britannia, I ask you with all my heart that I, Teresa Testarossa, wish to be a member of this ship, this battleship named Avalon. Please allow me, Your Majesty. Looking at Teresa, who made such a solemn request, Euphemia frowned slightly. She seemed to be unable to understand why Teresa wanted to do this. After all, Avalon was bound to leave this world and continue to pursue Miss Q in its next mission. Teresa knew about this, and Rei Minkai, who was standing next to her, also thought of this key point. But Ray Minkai thought more than Euphemia. Teresa, I'll call you Teresa from now on. Your purpose is to find Leonard? Why? Ray Minkai knew about Teresa's background. In today's world that had been changed by Ray Minkai and the others, Teresa did not experience the original destruction of Mithril. She did not even have the painful experience of carrying the heavy responsibility of the entire Sons of Dan's slave on her weak shoulders under the pressure of life and death. Therefore, Ray Minkai seemed to be able to understand Teresa's actions at this moment. Yes. Sure enough, Teresa's answer was yes. Her voice was soft, but she said with unusual firmness, "Although my brother is the executive officer of Amalgam and has brought chaos to this world, these things are over. I hope that in the future, I can find my brother and bring him back. He is the only family I have now. I don't want him to wander to other worlds. What if, when you find Leonard, he is still Mr. AG of Amalgam and has even done more evil deeds than before?" Ray Minkai already knew the answer to this question. But Ray Minkai felt that it was still necessary for Teresa to say the answer to this question herself. "If that's the case, then I will personally stop Leonard Testarossa, in the name of Testarossa." Facing the Empress of the Empire and the Knight Captain, the silver-haired girl said the answer in her heart resolutely. Thus, Euphemia and Ray Minkai agreed to Teresa's request. "I didn't expect to get the three Whispers to work for me so easily. I wonder if it's because our empire can attract outstanding talents? Or because someone has extraordinary charm?" After dealing with Teresa's sudden request to join Avalon, Ray Minkai, who was strolling on the deck with Euphemia, was met with the gaze of Euphemia's smiling eyes. In an instant, Ray Minkai felt the pressure of life and death. It was as if, whether it was front, back, left, or right, as long as he took a step, he would inevitably die. There was no choice. Yes. At this moment, no matter how Ray Minkai hypothesized, the answer to Euphemia's question would inevitably be a death answer. No. You know, Chidori hasn't joined us yet. Otherwise, the technology of our Britannia Empire will improve a lot. Under the pressure of life and death, Ray Minkai chose an answer that was not the answer. Is that so? Knight Captain Ray Minkai, do you really think so? Euphemia's eyes were filled with a light that could almost penetrate people's hearts, making Ray Minkai almost unable to escape from this light. Yes, it's true. UFFI. Chidori's whisper ability is far superior to Mira, Nami, and even Teresa. If we can get her to join us, the strength of our empire will inevitably rise to a new level. Obviously, Ray Minkai's answer did not meet Euphemia's psychological expectations at all, but Euphemia gently let go of Ray Minkai at this moment. Is that so? Then, I wonder if our Knight Captain can spare some time to work for the Empire? No. Your Majesty. What I should do now is to determine the whereabouts of Miss Q as soon as possible. Ray Minkai's reaction was extremely fast. He followed the steps given by Euphemia in one breath and went straight down, narrowly surviving this crisis. But then again, this time, before Ray Minkai's side left this world, it was indeed good news to be able to get Teresa's service. However, this news did not seem to be funny to Euphemia. Because there were more female Whisperers on the ship, 3 days had passed since the day Teresa joined Avalon. During these 3 days, Mallory and Qian Shanwu also boarded Avalon together, met with Ray Minkai and Euphemia, and carried out the final revision of future actions and the direction of the world. Since then, before Avalon left and returned again, the unification of this Earth would be carried out by Mallory and Qian Shanwu together. Your Excellency Mallory, Qian Shanwu, from now on, the affairs of this Earth will be temporarily entrusted to you. The direction of the future will be decided by your hands. In the end, Ray Minkai, who sent Mallory and Qian Shanwu to the helicopter, said to the two of them that made them subconsciously think about what was hidden in Ray Minkai's words. Ray Minkai naturally would not explain the meaning behind it. In the end, whether this world could be brought into Rei Minkai's jurisdiction or not depended on the results of the inspection fleet, as well as the actions of Mallory and Qian Shanwu. To put it bluntly, if after Rei Minkai left, Mallory and Qian Shanwu split up again due to selfishness, and once again plunged the world into the war between Amalgam and Mithril, even if the inspection fleet approved this world to be brought into Rei Minkai's jurisdiction, Rei Minkai would probably not invest much effort in this world. Roar. Kai. Success. The cooperation of Royd, Sahil, Mira, Nami, and Teresa, the three Whisperers, was effective. The originally slow progress of the analysis finally made a breakthrough with their cooperation, and in one fell swoop, they locked onto the whereabouts of Miss Q. Finally caught that woman's shadow. Kai. Hurry! State Zero, who had turned his unwillingness into motivation, let out a low growl. Let's get Avalon to leave Earth and head to the moon first. Even though Avalon's existence was already known by Amalgam and Mithril, under the harmonious cooperation of the two, Avalon's existence was just an alien joke in the eyes of ordinary people. Hurry! 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 If we don't leave now, that woman will run away again. State Zero's urging caused the many crew members on the bridge to speed up their actions. After all, the pure white lion that was nearly 3 meters tall just by squatting was extremely threatening. Even if everyone knew that this lion did not eat humans, and only liked to eat cherry stones. That ship is gone. On Merida Island, Mallory looked up at Avalon that was slowly rising into the sky and gradually disappearing in the light of the activation of the ideal home system. Yes, it's gone. Qian Shanwu, who was standing next to him, also let out a sigh. If it were not for the existence of Rei Minkai and Avalon, he was afraid that his life would end with the identity of a substitute. Not to mention making a comeback and stepping onto the world stage with the face of the real Mr. AU. Mr. O. Let's go. Before this ship returns, we still have a lot of things to do. Yes. Your Excellency Mallory. I'll be counting on your advice for the following matters. Likewise. In the sky, a stream of light quietly flashed across the dark side of the moon. Amalgam and Mithril began the next step of integration and reorganization, gradually guiding the world towards a different future according to Rei Minkai's vision. Chapter 432. In the endless void on the waterway from Mars to Earth. A huge man-made object called Yanglu City was cruising along the route from Mars to Earth at a seemingly slow speed, but in fact it was moving at an extremely fast speed. Its destination was the cradle of humankind, Earth. Coludio, the Count of the Martian Weiss Empire, was carrying out an important mission. The importance of this mission would undoubtedly determine the direction of the Weiss Empire and Earth in the next 10 years. Therefore, Count Coludio, who had always been serious, strict, and rigorous, became even more serious when he left Mars for Earth. That look made the retainers and subordinates beside him subconsciously tense their nerves and put all their attention into this mission. Count Coludio, according to the current speed of Yanglu City, we will enter the Earth-Moon orbit in half an hour. Hearing his subordinates report, Count Coludio, who had been keeping a straight face, slowly nodded. Proceed according to the original plan. Count Coludio pondered for a moment, then asked, What about Princess Ethelum? What is His Highness doing right now? Yes, Count Coludio. Her Royal Highness Princess Ethelum is now following the schedule and learning about Earth. Although this was a natural answer, Count Coludio's eyes still revealed a trace of dissatisfaction. This trace of dissatisfaction was not directed at the noble princess of the Martian Weiser Empire, Princess Ethelum Weiser Eliosia, but at the fact that the noble princess had to personally learn about Earth. This made Count Coludio, who had a deep prejudice against Earthlings, extremely dissatisfied. But Count Coludio was loyal. He was loyal to the Weiss Empire's royal family, loyal to the current emperor of the Weiss Empire, and even more loyal to Princess Ethelem Weiss Elusia of the Martian Weiss Empire. Time's up. Her Royal Highness should also rest. I'll leave this to you. Count Cludio turned the cane in his hand and ordered his henchman. Yes, Count Cludio. After leaving the bridge of Yanglu City, Cludio strolled in the city that belonged to him. Step by step, he made his way to the place that Princess Islem liked to stay in ever since she came to Yanglu City. It was a balcony with a view of the scenery outside the city. She is a princess who has lived in the palace for a long time and is very curious about the outside world. This was the impression that Count Cludio had formed of Princess Ethelem during the escort. But this didn't mean that Count Cludio would look down on Princess Ethelem. On the contrary, Cludio believed that this was the essence of a future wise ruler. Only a king who was curious about the unknown but cautious would be able to lead the empire on a path of development and prosperity. This was Count Cludio's hope for Princess Ethelem's future. The footsteps stopped. Cludio stood in front of an automatic door. Behind this door, Princess Islem should be there, doing her daily homework, staying on the balcony and observing the distance between the earth and the earth with her naked eyes. This might be Princess Ethelem's expectation for her trip to Earth. Whoosh! The automatic door opened. Count Cludio looked up. Sure enough, in the middle of the balcony, there was a girl with blonde hair, wearing a light long dress, and a smile on her face. Beside her was a young man wearing a retainer uniform, a young man from Earth. Cludio glanced at the young man from Earth, then said in his usual serious tone, "You're right, sir. So Her Royal Highness is here." The blonde girl met Cludio's gaze and smiled. "I'm Count Cludio. What's the matter?" "Yes. It's already late at night. Please go back to your room and rest." Cludio didn't hesitate to remind him that it was time for Princess Ethelem to rest. "Is that so? It's already this time? Then it's time for me to go back and rest." After that, the Martian princess turned to look at the young man from Earth. "Slain, that's all for today. See you tomorrow." "Yes. Your Royal Highness Princess Ethelem." Suddenly, just as Ethelem walked to Cludio's side, a violent vibration without warning caused Yanglu City to tremble violently. Caught off guard, Ethelem almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, Cludio was standing right next to her and caught her in time. "Your Royal Highness, are you okay?" Cludio had a trace of worry on his face, but he was mostly calm. "No. I'm fine." "Count Cludio, what's going on?" Ethelem shook her head and steadied herself with Cludio's help. "Your Royal Highness, please wait a moment." Cludio shook his head and comforted Ethelem. He then turned to look at a corner of the room and asked loudly, "What's going on?" As Cludio's voice fell, a faint light fell from the top of the room and formed a projection screen in midair. This was a direct connection from the bridge of Yanglu City. "Count Cludio, Your Royal Highness Princess Ethelem. Yanglu City seems to be under attack by an unknown force." "What? Unknown force? How is that possible? Earth definitely doesn't have the power to travel in deep space. Quick, find out what's going on for me. I'm coming to the bridge now." The bridge's inability to provide an answer made Cludio a little more dissatisfied. Regardless of whether it was out of concern for the safety of Yanglu City or the safety of Aziram, the Earl still made the decision to head to the bridge of Yanglu City at the first possible moment. "Your Royal Highness Princess Ethelem, I must go to the bridge immediately. Please forgive me for not being able to escort Your Royal Highness back to your room." "Okay. Count Cludio, the safety of Yanglu City and everyone else is in your hand." Ethelem was very sensible. Although she didn't know what was going on, she still expressed her stance and let Cludio do what he was supposed to do. "Yes, Your Royal Highness Ethelem." After respectfully responding to Ethelem, Cludio turned his head and stared at Serene. "Serene, From now on, until this matter is resolved, you are in charge of Princess Ethelum's safety. If anything happens to Princess Iselem, you'll have to pay for it with your life. Yes, Count Cludio, I will use my life to protect Her Highness Princess Iselem. After being forced to make a decision against his will, Cludio quickly returned to the bridge of Yanglu City. Now, the bridge was in chaos. The attack that came out of nowhere left everyone scratching their heads, and at the same time, it increased their fear of death. No one would be unafraid of an invisible attack. Calm down. The more panicked we are, the easier it is for the enemy to take advantage of the situation. Count Cludio knocked his cane on the cold floor a few times, trying to calm his subordinates down. In the end, Cludio's action was useful. The moment Cludio returned, the chaos on the bridge also disappeared. Is it an attack by the Earth Alliance army? No, not at all. The Earthlings can't break through our defense line and come here. The answer was obvious. Everyone agreed with Cludio's question in an instant. The Earthlings, who were blocked by the orbital night, had no way or ability to set foot in the deep space, which was almost the backyard of the Weiss Empire. Then, there was only one answer. Is it the orbital night? Cludio did not ask this question, because he knew it was impossible. Only a loyal knight could have access to the core of Yanglu City, which was also the foundation of the Weiss Empire on Mars, Aldnoah, an ancient relic technology with infinite possibilities. And this access could only be obtained through loyalty to the royal family. If it's not the Orbital Knights' rebellion, then who could it be? Suddenly, an absurd possibility popped into Cludio's mind. Is it the original owner of Aldnoah? The ancient race that has disappeared in the long river of time? However, reality did not give Cludio any time to think about the truth behind this sudden attack. The only thing he could do now was to instruct his retainers and subordinates to deal with this sudden attack as quickly as possible. Increase the search range of the radar. At the same time, prepare Tarsus. Yes, sir. At this moment, in Cludio's eyes, the attack that came out of nowhere was still ongoing. The only thing that Yanglu City knew was that the attack seemed to be from man-made objects. Although the attack was sudden, a few of his subordinates still managed to capture an image in time. From the familiar shape and weapon layout in the image, it was a killing weapon created by humans, missiles. Like sharks in the deep sea, black shadows darted out of the darkness and surrounded the enormous Yanglu City, which looked like a fat prey in order to attack. Again, and again, even though the space around Yanglu City was constantly flashing, the people on the bridge still could not determine the source of the attack. They could not even find the answer to where the attack came from. Cludio's left hand clenched his cane tightly. His eyes were also fixed on the main screen in front of him. The area on Yanglu City was constantly changing from green to yellow, and even to a dazzling red in the next moment. As time went by, as the tremors in Yanglu City grew more intense, he knew that if this continued, even if Yanglu City had a strong defense, it would still be exhausted to death by this invisible enemy. By then, not to mention Yanglu City, even Princess Ethelum would be buried in this deep space. Where is the enemy? Why can't even Yanglu City's radar detect the enemy? Deploy Tarsus immediately. Quick. In the end, Cludio made a decision that was not a decision. At this critical moment, as a Knight of Mars, he did not choose to escort Princess Ethelum to Mars. Instead, he chose to launch an attack with his beloved mech. Wait, Count Cludio, let me try. At this moment, an unexpected voice suddenly sounded in the bridge. As soon as they heard this voice, everyone froze. Even Count Cludio, who had made up his mind to launch an attack with his beloved mech, was shocked. Because at the entrance of the bridge, Princess Ethelum of Mars, who had changed into formal attire, was accompanied by a petite maid and the young man from Earth, Serene. Princess Ethelum, why are you here? Count Cludio, I'm sorry for coming here without permission at this critical moment. Also, please don't blame Serene for this, Count Cludio. This is my own decision. Because I have an intuition. This is not a malicious attack. The Martian princess named Ethylum Visser Illusia had a look of determination in her eyes. Cludio did not immediately respond to Ethylum's words. Instead, he stared fiercely at Serene, then regretted his foolish decision in a moment of desperation. But even so, Cludio could not deny Ethylum's words. For Etheram Visser Illusia was the royal family to whom he had pledged allegiance. Yes, Her Royal Highness Princess Ethylum. Your wish, this subject will definitely fulfill it for you. But for your safety, Tarsus must be ready to attack at any time. Cludio compromised, but he still insisted on his bottom line. Ethylum nodded slightly and sincerely thanked him. Count Cludio, thank you very much for your tolerance. Then, I'll leave everything to you. I'm afraid. The violent tremors continued. Even the roars from the outer walls of Yanglu City had penetrated the heavy defenses and reached the bridge, reaching everyone's ears. The sound was so loud that some timid people could not help but swallow their saliva subconsciously. But when their eyes landed on the white figure standing in the middle of the bridge, waiting for the communication to be completed, they miraculously calmed down. This was the first princess of the Martian Weiser Empire, Her Royal Highness Princess Isolam Weiser Iliosia. I'm the first princess of the Mars Visser Empire, Princess Ethylum Visser Illusia. May I ask who is attacking our Yanglu city? If our journey has disturbed your excellency, I would like to offer you my sincerest apology in my name. But before that, I hope your excellency can be honest with us. It's not easy to meet a similar existence in this void of space. I, the Mars Visser Empire, hope to gain friendship under this starry sky, not war. I'm the first princess of the Mars Visser Empire, Princess Ethylum Visser Illusia. The existence that is attacking us, please be honest with us. At this moment, the image of the princess was pure and radiant. But under this radiance, Cludio held his cane tightly, ready to turn around and rush to his beloved Tarsus at any time to open a path for the princess to return to Mars. Will it work? The princess's speech on the international public channel was pure and flawless, but Cludio did not believe it would have any effect. But as soon as Ethylum's voice fell, the attack that came out of nowhere stopped. The tremors in Yanglu City also stopped. It worked? The enemy did not continue to attack? Cludio looked at his relieved subordinates and looked at Ethylum in disbelief. However, Cludio and even Ethylum did not know that the reason the attack stopped was not because of Ethylum's words, but because a silver-haired girl was tired of playing with Avalon. Well, Avalon's performance is beyond my imagination. And under such a large-scale attack, it can still maintain a fairly good stealth performance. What a good ship! But is it really okay for me to be the captain of this ship? The silver-haired girl looked at Euphemia sitting in the guest seat, and Ray Minkai standing next to her. Talent must be used. This is His Majesty's principle. Teresa, this position belongs to you. Ray Minkai shook his head slightly, indicating that Teresa did not need to worry. Based on the method of teasing Yanglu City just now, there were probably not many people who were suitable to be the captain of Avalon. In that case, I'll accept your offer. Your Majesty. This was the first day Teresa followed Ray Minkai and the others to this world called Aldnoazero. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.